What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to another late starting midweek show. Wednesday afternoon, coming up on 4 o'clock already. Not great for the pace at which we do this show, but we're going to get through this 11 gamer. Kind of like we did yesterday. I'm going to knock out the summaries. I'm going to do my best to fly through the game by game. It was 2 hours and change yesterday, but we still got out reasonable time, like 6:15-ish, not too bad. I'd like to have us out by 6. We will see how we do, but welcome everybody. Little group here already in the chat. Cujo's here, Ducking, Monty's here, Tall to God is here, Andy's here. Good to see everybody. Ballpark in West Sacramento keeps getting smaller and smaller as summer deepens, says Monty. Yeah, absolutely. The Athletics paid off yesterday. That one's looking juicy again today. Bryce Elder, maybe slightly better pitcher going for the Braves than what we had yesterday, but definitely an attack spot. Both those teams over 5 runs again. So we're going right back to that one for some bats. And yeah, wouldn't go to any pitching in that game for sure. Interesting board overall for an 11 gamer. We got a lot to work with, a lot to talk through. We do have something to fix that I just uploaded the confirmed lineups to the site, and I actually fixed this in the projections, but just know as we're going through this that Tyler Tolbert is not going to be at these projections. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. I assume in the back end, he's just, I assume, we'll find it right now actually, that he's just not actually projected for anything here. So it's drawing against nothing. 21 games, a handful of plate appearances. Yeah, what is pushing that projection? That's weird. 3 hits, 4 runs. I don't know why this would be creating a projection. 8 steals maybe is doing it. That's weird. How's he going to steal 8 bases if he's only hitting 3 hits and less than a walk? It's going to be difficult. Those projections don't really go together. I'm going to do this, and I'll leave that alone. I'm going to do this. And I don't care about any of that. Let's just see what that does. There we go. That's where it ought to be. So is those stolen bases, basically. That was weird. I don't know how that back end landed. It's a mix of a guy like that I'll never come across. I'm not going through all, like, how many hitters are in there. This isn't pure steamer, but steamer's the foundation. It used to be driven entirely steamer. Now it's a blend. I talked about this at the beginning of the season. It's a blend of steamer and oopsie, and then with a little my own sprinkling in here. But yeah, I don't go through all 4,500 of these guys to make sure that guys like Tyler Tolbert are going to project correctly. So we got to clean things up every now and again. Fun way to start the show, though, right? Stephen B is here. Lone Wolf is here. Yeah, thank you, Lone Wolf. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel as we get started. Those do help. Picking up some new people. Keep Vape is here. Keep Vape early, on time. Yep. Early is on time is late, as they say, right? I was just in something that I was watching. But it is a slogan that some people live their lives by. That actually makes sense to me. What never made sense to me was the people that, I set my clock 5 minutes ahead so that I'm always 5 minutes early. No. If I set my watch 5 minutes ahead, I'll just sit there being like, well, my watch is 5 minutes ahead, so I know I have 5 extra minutes to sit here and be late. Like, it just doesn't work for me. Anyway, let's dive into this one. Not enough time to really spend on stuff like that, unfortunately. A couple monster spots on this slate. You can see we've got, 5 teams above 5 implied total. We've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the upper 4s. Lot of offense showing. After a day where we got a lot of offense. What do we have? 4 different double-digit totals yesterday? In, just spots. Marlins went off. I think the Rangers got into double digits, right? The A's most certainly did. Forget if the Yankees got all the way there, but they had a decent game. Red Sox, I think, got there, right? That was the other one. Lone Wolf's calling it out. Yeah, pretty much same playbook as yesterday. Boston, the Athletics, the Braves. Makes a ton of sense. It absolutely does. John Hansa says, then set it 10 minutes ahead. Same deal, dude. I'll just be sitting there like, oh man, I got all the time in the world. I don't even need to leave yet. Never ever worked. Our old boss used to be into that. I've talked about him before. Guy that made me wear suits and buy fancy suits to go sell to IT guys who would be wearing jeans and t-shirts like, what I would be wearing normally. I could walk in there looking like this and sell something to that guy. You make me wear a fancy suit, I'm going to have a problem because he's going to be like, oh, this place is too expensive for me. Such a pain in the ass. Anyway. Hit the 11 button. Having a Hunter Brown last night. Yeah, good question. I didn't see much of that, but obviously that one didn't go our way. Every now and again, as we talk about a lot, every now and again, even a really, really good pitcher like that is going to go bust. Happens to the best of them. It's just how baseball goes. Didn't actually see the rundown on what actually happened in that game, though. Didn't catch highlights this morning, unfortunately. I haven't recorded on the DVR. I just didn't happen to put it on. I was watching Dirty Rotten Scoundrels for the 14th time this month. It's just been on. Good movie if you've never seen it. Mets, Orioles. Mets, one of the big spots of the day. Chalk Mets, chalk Yankees. What could go wrong? Especially wearing this hat. I should have put my Rangers hat on at least. 5, 6, 7 implied total. All the power in the world showing in the home run model for the Mets going up against Tomo Sugano. Looks like an incredible spot for them. David Peterson drawing a little bit of projection against the Orioles, but they're more than capable of putting a few runs on him. 4.44 on their side. Big environment for hitting there. That one does have some weather. Roth is the first word in Roth's breakdown from earlier is and he's got it as orange, put it that way. A lot of rain, says it clears maybe around first pitch, and there's like a window of time. We will see. He calls out some postponement risk, so just keep an eye on it. Hopefully we just know early and we don't have to sweat it. Yanks have a little bit of rain. They basically played, they had a little bit of a delay. A lot of storms in the area yesterday, tornado warnings before the end of the night. It got all green and dark outside, but the monster storm didn't really come through, and then they resumed play and finished out that game. So I could see it going the same way today. Yellow, orange on the weather board, but definitely one to watch. 9.5 run total. The Yanks pulling a 5.24. They're going up against Logan Evans, and it is the debut of Cam Schlittler on the mound for the Yankees. They're number 10 overall prospect. We'll give them a look. Sandy Alcantara is on the mound for the Marlins going up against the Reds. Andrew Abbott answering back on that on the other side of that one. 4.61 implied total for the Reds is definitely drawing the eye. That's an up and down kind of a lineup. If Sandy's on form, and he most definitely has not been recently, then you could get through that one. He's uniquely cheap for his talents, but it's been an ugly year so far in his return to action. So definitely a lot of warts on that play. I don't think we need to go to Andrew Abbott. He's given up a handful of runs in each of his last few starts and not really been finding the strikeout stuff. He's on the board, but a 4 implied total on the Marlins, and they've just got some more interesting bats as we've talked about the last couple of days and completely went off yesterday. I don't know how much Andrew Abbott we need on a deep enough slate. The Rockies, Antonio Senzatella is pushing one of the highest implied totals of the day toward the Red Sox. They're looking huge again. Fortunately, Senzatella is right-handed, so we get all the premium lefty bats back in a really, really good-looking spot. So we're going to like Jarren Duran up at the top of the lineup. It's going to be a good opportunity for Roman Anthony. Willier will be in a spot in the heart of the lineup where he can hopefully knock some runs in. Huge total for the Red Sox. They're going to be chalky right along with the Yanks, with the Mets, and then with that game at the end of the night. Definitely ways to put those teams together, and you're going to have to get creative with getting to some of their cheaper guys, and there are some interesting cheap bats on each of those teams. So there are ways to get to them and combine them that might be a little bit more unique than the field or than optimizers will necessarily get to, because you'll have to embrace the idea of going to some lower projected guys for cost, for value from the bottom of some of those lineups, like an Oswald Peraza or somebody like that from the Yankees, to fill out full stacks with those teams in combination with one another. But there might be an advantage to doing that because it will be more unique than the people that just mash those upside teams together with some of the mid-4s implied total teams. Rockies not on the board all that much. Lucas Giolito been pitching to strong form of late, going deep into games, at least 6 innings in each of his last 5 starts, completed the 6 3 times and then went 7 and then 7 2/3. Has been tremendous lately. Great opportunity for him against the Rockies. 3-1-3 implied total for Colorado. The Cubs really let me down yesterday. I had them in a couple of lineups and was very disappointed in their output against Simeon Woods Richardson. They get to come back today against David Festa, who has been a little bit up and down overall in his short career so far. When he's good, he can be very good. When he's bad, he's very bad. So I like the upside for the Cubs. 4.75 implied total. They're definitely in the mix, but they're expensive for that total against where some of the other expensive teams are totaled out and how they project. So it's a kind of a mixed bag spot for the Cubbies. 4.85 on the other side of that for a little bit more affordable Twins. They're going up against Cade Horton. Similarly, Horton, a high-end prospect in his rookie season. He's been good in some spots. Last time out, he went 7 against Cleveland, struck out 5, walked 2, no runs allowed, 5 hits. Very solid start. Problematic one the start before that, 7 earned runs in a 4-inning start against Houston. So there's good, there's bad. Tough spot for him as well. Twins showing a 4.85 implied total. Both sides of that game, we get into some offense. Wouldn't shock me if either of those kids had a good start, though. Would shock me if Bailey Falter had a really good start here. He might be okay, but I don't think he's going to be necessary for DFS. He's a very low strikeout pitcher going up against a low strikeout offense in Kansas City. They're also drawing nearly a 5 implied total because he's just not that good overall. Maybe he gets through 4 or 5 innings with 3-4 runs allowed. But that's like your upside. So really no DFS reason to go to Bailey Falter. Chris Bubich on the other side of that game, though, looks pretty tremendous. 3.68 implied total for the Pirates. Bubich been tremendous all season long. Given up a few more runs in recent starts, but only one was really bad. 5-run game against the Yankees over 4 1/3. He gave up 5 on 6 hits, 3 strikeouts and 4 walks. Other than that, we're talking about normalized performances. 3 earned runs, 2 earned runs in 2 of them, 3 the last time out, but went 7 innings against the Diamondbacks, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks. They won the game. It's a good start. So there's nothing wrong, and it's brought his price down a little bit, the normalization of the performance. So really like the spot against one of the most purely targetable teams with DFS starters. Nationals at the Cards. Kind of a weird one here. Mackenzie Gore looking very solid in my model. Saw him under projected in other spots, though. Kind of curious about that one. I really like the upside for Gore. He's been another one who maybe a little bit more humanized in some of his recent starts, but only one of them, similarly, only one of them, a 5-run game, was not great. That was 5 2/3 against the Dodgers. He gave up 5 runs, struck out 4, walked 4. You can see the commonality in both of those disappointing starts for both of those lefties was the walks got away from them against 2 very good offenses that are going to capitalize on that kind of thing. Otherwise, recent starts, 2 earned runs here and there, but pitches deep into games. I'm very interested, especially if he goes under-owned because he's under-projected in other places. 4.31 implied total against as well for that mediocre Cardinals offense against a lefty where some of their better bats come out of the lineup. Kind of weird. Andre Palante on the hill for the Cards. Another guy capable of pitching deep into games, but not really a high-end strikeout starter. Going up against the Nats, they're just drawing a 3.78 implied total. That's another spot. I find that a little bit odd. I think that should at worst be a little bit more leveled out with like 4 low 4s implied total on both sides. I think the Nats offense a little bit underappreciated here and the Cards a little bit overappreciated here. The one thing Palante does typically do well is keep the ball in the yard, limits home runs, so that does take away a little sliver of upside from the very top of that Nationals lineup where the interesting bats are. So maybe it's not a day we get over the moon about the Nationals, but a few shares of them as we go into it. I wouldn't call you crazy. Slade Ciccone on the mound for the Guardians going up against the Astros. Brandon Walter answering back in the other direction. Both pitchers have been competent. Walter's had 2 bumpy starts out of his 6, but the other ones have been pretty good, and he's gone deep into games. Ciccone has okay strikeout stuff, 5 strikeouts in each of his last 2, over 6 innings, over 4 2/3, couple of runs allowed against Detroit and St. Louis. I don't think either guy's going to be overly necessary, and I'd probably rather grab bats from each of those teams, but just a 3.38 implied total on the Guardians is definitely drawing the eye. So maybe we do give Brandon Walter at least a little bit more consideration, but I could see some downside coming from a at least interesting top-heavy Cleveland team. 4.20 implied total for the Astros. I think we can look at some of their bats. The Rangers at the Angels. We just saw the Rangers go off a little bit. This time they get to fight against Kyle Hendricks here. They're drawing a big total, 4.89. Call it 4.90 against Hendo. Very, very gettable starter. That said, hasn't gotten obliterated outside of one start this year. Back on April 25th, he gave up 7 runs to the Twins over 3. Most of his starts, 3, maybe 4 runs allowed. Not good, but not bad. Or let me amend that. He's not good. He is kind of bad. He's not fully bad. Whatever's halfway, he's mediocre. There you go. Kumar Rocker on the bump against that high strikeout Angels team. Maybe a little bit interesting for a fair price. Diamondbacks in the pods as we come to the home stretch here. Brandon Pfaadt and Dylan Cease. A couple of interesting pitchers. Obviously, Brandon Pfaadt has had his problems up against a low strikeout, hard-hitting Padres team. I think we can look in other directions, but he has found his strikeout form in the last 3, 7 strikeouts in 2 of them, 8 strikeouts the last time out. Granted, that was against Colorado at Coors, Miami, and San Francisco. This is an entirely different animal. I think we could probably lean away from Brandon Pfaadt, but he is better than what he was pitching like in stretches. And in 2 of those last 3 games, he did give up 4 earned runs, by the way. Dylan Cease, on the other hand, definitely a interesting option. Is going up against a very high-end Diamondbacks lineup, though. He can definitely get tagged for some earned runs. A handful of bad starts in the last few. Against the Dodgers, he allowed 6. Does have great strikeout stuff, though, so he can pitch his way through a few runs and still give you DFS quality. It's just the Diamondbacks can sequence against you, pile up some runs, and maybe exploit the downside there. Just a 3.69 implied total, or 3.67 implied total, though. And then that monster at the end of the night again, 5.30 implied total on both sides of that one. It came down to dead even 10.5 run total. It's Bryce Elder, it's Mitch Spence. We are not going to the pitchers. We are definitely considering those big bats again. Let's get into the pitching slate. Keith Vape saying should have played Bayo, skipped them due to ownership. Big mistake. Yeah, well, Mizurowski wasn't a bad consolation prize in that equation, but that Bayo spot just paid off some chalk as a cheap value pitcher against Colorado. What can you do? You know, you just got to go to it. Mizurowski, on the other hand, though, wow, what a start! Gave up that leadoff home run to Shohei, and then buckled down and struck out 12 Dodgers. Monster spot. He's going to have those for sure. It's just, what does the downside day look like, and how many of them do we get along the way? And then for me, I traded him away, like I said, in the Dynasty League. He was only a 1-year keeper for next year, and I exchanged him for the second half for Chris Sanchez. So I feel like it was a good trade as long as everybody stays healthy, because they'll limit Mizurowski's innings at some point. Anywho, Mackenzie Gore up at the top of the board. Like I said, I got him a little bit different looking than other places, and don't have any reason that he'd be running away with a projection here. He's just good. And it's not like he's projected out into the 40s or into the mid 20s or something like that on DK. Like, this is a conservative, good pitcher projection against a mediocre lineup. So love that spot, especially if he goes a little under owned. Chris Bubich, the highest priced pitcher on both slates, has been good throughout the season going up against that Pirates lineup. Love the spot. Probably going to be popular even at price. Cease, given the strikeout upside, 9,000, 9,300, even against that Diamondbacks lineup, worth paying for. Monster spot for Giolito, as we were just discussing. Brian Bayo smoked this Colorado team last night, and Lucas Giolito could do an even better job. He's only 8,500 somehow on DraftKings. That's a killer spot. 97 is correct on FanDuel for this form of Giolito. Andrew Abbott, as much as I was saying that maybe we don't need to go there, does project out quite well, 92, 95. Very gettable Marlins lineup on the other side. I just don't love taking pitchers in that ballpark. Just a thing. And Abbott is kind of mid for this slate, especially how he's priced. I'd rather, if I was considering that spot, I'd rather drop to Brandon Walter, let's say at 85 on FanDuel for a point less of projection that doesn't matter in the long run. I'll save the money and take that spot rather than going into that ballpark in Cincinnati. 87, it's kind of the same thing on the DraftKings slate. David Peterson could get through Baltimore. Obviously got some weather to worry about in that one, though. Not an ideal situation, but Peterson does have good strikeout stuff when he's on. A lot of good righties in that Baltimore lineup to worry about, though. Ciccone at 89, 83, probably more of a target against with Houston bats, but that's going to be an all sides game, I think, given the way the two pitchers project and how usable they look and how usable both those lineups can be. So probably a 4 corners game there. I don't love the Ciccone spot. Kumar's interesting, 82, 75. Now we're getting into the discount area. He can find some strikeouts against that Angels team. He can pitch through that game clean. There's obviously a lot of power coming back the other way, but an interesting spot. Same thing with David Festa against the Cubs. A lot of power coming back the other way. Very, very high danger spot. But when he's on, he can be very good, and he profiles as a top-end starter. 7,700 is very fair on FanDuel for the spot. 8,000 on DraftKings. He should probably be in the sevens, but it's playable. Fought against the Pods is playable. 79, 74, but he comps out similarly to a lot of other guys in that price range or a little bit less. Do think you could throw some darts with Fott, though. Think you could throw some Andre Palante darts at that Washington lineup, 78, 72. Once you get through the top two, and as long as he's keeping the ball in the yard, he can give you 7 pretty clean innings for the price. He's just another option as an SP2. There's nothing special there, but he's playable. Logan Evans against the Yanks could find strikeout form. He is good enough to get through that Yankees lineup. Obviously, the Vegas total sides with the Yankees. The model does as well. The power index does. Everything is coming up Yankees bats. But there's a lot of swing and miss in that lineup on the wrong day. There's a lot of strikeouts in that lineup. Logan Evans could find a day for 76, for 77. Not off the board, but we greatly lean the Yankees bats in that one. Another spot with some weather. Elder against the Athletics, again, projects out okay. 24, 11 and change on the other side. I just think everything in that game works against him, and it's not a good spot. Schlittler at 8,000, at 7,000, kind of priced up. He's not bad, but I don't love it in Yankee Stadium on a warm day against a hard-hitting Mariners team. First start in the show. Seems like there's better spots, especially on FanDuel. There's better spots than paying 8,000 for that. Sandy's interesting. As much as I don't love going to that ballpark, 7,400 and 6,900, even for this version of Sandy, is kind of tempting. Maybe it's just the name brand, the siren song of the names just standing out against a lineup that does have strikeout in it. But it's a very cheap price. It can help make things work. There are other options for that, though. Mitch Spence is a no. At 69, at 68 on the other side of that Oakland and Atlanta game. Kate Horton against the Twins, 72-65. Doesn't feel great, but is very, very cheap. Maybe could get into the mix. But if I'm going to that game, it's probably for a more highly projected Festa, even though I like the Cubs lineup a little bit better than the Twins lineup. Tomo Sugano's a hard no against the Mets. Bailey Falter against KC. Kyle Hendricks and Antonio Senzatella in Fenway are all hard no's at the bottom of the board. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. The site is rotoscouts.com. Everything over there is under $1 a day to access all of the projections. You get a projection for everybody in every baseball lineup. You get a home run model number that's a custom number from our site. Well, so is the projection. But in my custom home run model number, you get that in addition to the individual player projection. You get the access to the top stacks. You get pitching projections, power index, and you get access to every single sport. Anything else that hits that website, as I'm updating the Mets and Orioles lineups in the background here. Anything that hits that website is yours for under $1 a day. Weekly, monthly, quarterly plans available. The home run pick of the day comes from the Mets. I'm really hoping this game doesn't get rained out. I will embrace the chalk of the Mets lineup. There are ways to get different. There are players that hit the ball pretty hard down toward the bottom of this lineup for cheap prices at key positions. Definitely interested in some Mets. I see no real reason to play Tomo Sugano here. 6,000, 7,000, doesn't project well, 14% strikeout. It comes against just a 4.8% walk. If you want one positive attribute for him, I won't talk entirely negatively, but a 4.79% home run rate against this Mets team, 12% barrels allowed, a 4.44 ERA with a 4.58 xFIP. There's just upside for Mets bats here. Weather needs to hold off. That's the only key. David Peterson against the O's for 9,000 for 91. Obviously a little bit expensive for a guy coming in. He does have a 3.18 ERA, but a 3.64 xFIP is notably higher. It's still very good, but it is higher. Just a 20% strikeout rate against an 8.6% walk, a 1.27 whip. Puts himself in bad situations a lot. 44.5% hard hit, 90.6 miles an hour of exit velo that matter less because he does keep the ball down. 4.3 average launch angle allowed this year. He has been good. He is a talented pitcher, but we lack the strikeout this year that we used to have. Last year, just 19.8. 2 years ago, 26%. So he has pushed last year's number up by fractions of a point, but 27.8 2 years ago, 26% back in 3 years ago and 2 years ago. So that guy is not who David Peterson necessarily is anymore. And he's kind of coming in with that kind of a price tag. The Orioles have a 26.7% strikeout rate in this confirmed version of the lineup. So maybe that's a collision of factors where Peterson does find a good strikeout game. He's had 2 7 strikeout games, had a 9 strikeout game over 5 1/3 all the way back on April 18th. That was the peak for the season. Everything else is in like the 4 to 6 range, but capable of putting up a few additional. It's just, you're taking a shot there at those prices. I don't love it, but I think he's in play because he'll probably be low owned for tournaments. He's as talented as anybody on this. Orioles bats very much in play. The Mets are the more appealing side. Starting things off at 12.22, Brandon Nimmo actually is the home run pick of the day, the very first hitter that we end up talking about. He's got 18 of them on the season. He's got a 9.9% barrel, 51.9% hard hits, putting up a 215 ISO so far. Don't exactly know what would be wrong with going to Brandon Nimmo or why he's priced at just 45 on DraftKings, 3,000 on FanDuel, leading into this stretch of superstars. Massive, massive upside. It's the most obvious stack in the world to put those 4 guys together. That doesn't mean I didn't do that in my placeholder lineup. That's exactly what I did. On DraftKings, you grab the top 5 there. Forgot that Jesse Winker's on this team. That's a big lefty bat to have hitting 5th against this pitcher for 2,500. Didn't clock that when I just put the lineups in. That's really, really cheap for Jesse Winker's ceiling. Just 232, 313, 406 over 80 plate appearances so far this season. Did have an 8% barrel, a 46% hard hit that remind us of the old version of Jesse Winker, who used to hit the ball pretty squarely and hit a pretty large number of home runs several years ago. That's a good price. He hasn't been great this year. He was not great in the past 2 seasons. 253, 360, 405 though last year. 118 WRC plus, 14 homers, 14 steals. Underwhelming counting stats overall, but that's not a bad season. And it's obviously a great run creation season. Year before that was bad. Just 197 plate appearances. That was when he was bouncing around with injuries. Same thing year before. I think that was the 2022 was the Seattle year, if I remember correctly. And then 2021 would have been the big Cincinnati year. And that's, I'm not going to bother taking the time to open it up. But obviously, the guy can hit. And he's very cheap. So that brings you just, if you go with the most obvious Met stack, you're already down at 46.40. I know it's not completely cheap, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper if you just use the average than 55, 57, and 5,000. Jeff McNeil has had a very solid year plus. More of a put the ball in play kind of a hitter still. 4.8% barrels, 30.3% hard hits. Don't let anybody tell you that he actually is a big-time home run hitter now, even though he says he focuses more on that, even though he does have a 216 ISO and 9 home runs and 215 chances, and has, again, been hitting for a little bit more power-related results, let's say. It's difficult to really justify it because there's not all that much here that backs up what he's telling us. He's gone up by 3 percentage points the last 2 years in hard hit rate. He's essentially has doubled and then added to that in the barrel rate, but that's still a really underwhelming barrel rate overall. 3,400, 2,900 continues to be the correct price for Jeff McNeil, but he is very, very playable and also helps you average down those prices. If you're like, say, leaving out Nimmo, you still want the 3 superstars and you just do that. You're at 4,420. Obviously, there are ways to get that even cheaper if you include Luis Lorenz at 27, who's been a interesting bat this year, let's say. 179 plate appearances. The output has been terrible. 210, 285, 315. I knew something looked weird over here. Didn't have that stretched out far enough. 210, 285, 315, but an underlying 371 xWOBA because look how hard he hits the ball. His batted ball events have been great. 15% barrels, 55% hard hits. It's just not cashing in on any of that. 74 WRC plus. I continue to be interested at 27 where you have to play catchers though. I think he's in the mix for some shares in a lot of Met stacks on FanDuel. Probably not the direction I would go most often though. Ronnie Mauricio is interesting in between those bats. 3,000 second base, third base eligible on DraftKings, 2,400 with multi-position on FanDuel. Solid 8.50 that I think we can justify in the home run model, given the 8.8% barrels, the 40.4% hard hits so far. 4 home runs on the board, 244, 311, 427 over 90 plate appearances, a 183 ISO. Created runs 11% better than average. I'll take it as a start. That is not bad. Brett Beatty in the 9 spot is interesting. 12.8% barrels, 47.4% hard hits, 9 home runs in 229 chances. Also second base eligible, third base eligible. I would play him at either spot. 186 ISO. He gives you enough upside, gives you enough ceiling to cash in on some of the on-base opportunities in front of him, and several of those guys do get on base at a decent clip, including Jeff McNeil. I like the upside of Beatty as a closer in the 9 spot. Not great at getting on base, not necessarily a good wraparound option, but you just play him along with those guys anyway because he's cheap and he fills spots, and he does have some power hitting upside. It's a 9-man lineup for the Mets. And then obviously Lindor, Soto, and Alonso. Soto and Alonso tied at 21 home runs apiece, a 157 and a 163 WRC plus. Lindor bringing up the rear of that list at a 123 WRC plus, but still a tremendous season, 18 home runs, 14 steals, just a 197 ISO. I think we see that push up a little bit as he returns to barreling more balls in the second half. He has been doing Francisco Lindor things all season long. Monster number in the home run model for all 3 of those guys, but I picked that one just because. Top to bottom, 9-man Mets lineups today. Fire away with however you can put this team together. But this team play, that's a 9-man lineup for sure. On the Orioles side of this, everybody on DraftKings is cheap. Nobody even at 4,000. That is really cheap for a team drawing a 4.44 implied total with some interesting bats, going up against the lefty with a lot of good righties. That is, especially if people kind of ignore that, how's their ownership looking? That's worth looking at. We'll talk faster about some of these games. Don't worry. Ooh, that's FanDuel. FanDuel's really low. That's at least encouraging for DraftKings. Oh, by the way, all tickets cashed on the over for what these guys had projected for ownership in the A's and Braves game last night. That was definitely not under owned like they had it, unfortunately. This spot, though, maybe. I could believe that this team goes a little bit under owned here. Again, David Peterson is good, but he's also gettable enough. And with everybody below 4,000, there's some value there. Jackson Holiday at 36, 29, 12 home runs, 9 steals. Not an uninteresting fantasy season. A 108 WRC plus over 351 plate appearances. 10.3% barrels and 45.5% hard hits. Kind of fulfilling his destiny, as I've been saying. He's cut strikeout from 33-2 in the weird sample up and down last year to 24-2. Entirely respectable so far this year. Comes against just 5.4% walks. He needs to push that up, gain some on base, and then it'll get even better. But it's not a bad season in the leadoff spot for a cheap price at second. I will take shots with that. Lefty, what's he done against lefties? Let's actually see. One day I'll build this in. Perfectly fine. Lefty, 256, 307, 378. Just a 122 ISO, just a 94 WRC plus, but reasonable enough over 88 plate appearances. 2 home runs on the board against same-handed pitching so far, against the 10 against the opposite hand. He is obviously a little bit better against righties so far, but that's competent at least against lefties and good enough to throw at David Peterson. Jordan Westberg at 36, 31, 9 home runs in 161 plate appearances, 228 ISO, a 118 WRC plus, 14% barrels and 45.8% hard hits. We just need to find some elevation against David Peterson, and then the hard hit, the exit velo is going to be there. So 1-2 mistakes, and we can cash in with some of these bats the way these guys can hit the ball. Gunnar Henderson, 51.5% hard hits. The barrels have kind of evaporated. We've lost 4 and change points of barrels, but he's also down at 3,900 on DraftKings at shortstop. That's ridiculous. 3,200 on FanDuel. 10 home runs, 10 steals, a competent 270, 338, 435 slash line, 330 underlying xWOBA, a 116 WRC plus. Is not like he's been bad. It's just he's maybe been bad against our expectations. Everybody in this Orioles lineup kind of has been, except for maybe Ryan O'Hearn, who's not in this lineup. Ramon Laureano at 37, 3,000. Again, very, very cheap for a guy with 10 home runs over 218 plate appearances. He's carrying a 227 ISO. We've seen him be good and hit the ball like this over stretches in the past. 11% barrels, 44.1% hard hits, 273, 344, 500 slash line. Creator runs 35% better than average to lead this team right now. It's an interesting bat. Ramon Urias is always interesting. Always goes under owned every single time. Every time he's out there. 6.3% barrels, 38.9% hard hits. You got to temper expectations overall. It's right in line with what he always does, though. And we've always been able to collect under-owned home runs and under-owned quality DFS days from this guy. He's up to the 5th spot in the lineup, which is also kind of interesting. I bet he goes under-owned again today. Just a 91 WRC plus, just a 125 ISO, but we have found 6 home runs along the way. And again, nobody was on him those days. 11 home runs in 301 plate appearances on similar contact last year. Just 4 over 396, but a solid slash line, was around a league average run creator at least back in 23, and then had 16 home runs with a 166 ISO, a 104 WRC plus over 445 back in 22. The guy can hit, and people don't go there. He's very, very cheap. It's just so is everybody else in this lineup now, so he doesn't stand out quite as much for value, but I bet you on ownership you could still get there if you're going to this team. Tyler O'Neill, speaking of cheap, at 3,200, at 2,700 on FanDuel. Over 106 plate appearances this year, he has not been good. He's got 3 home runs. He's got a 187, 283, 341 slash line. You need to start paying attention if you think that's who Tyler O'Neill actually is. Dude can mash when he's going right, when he's healthy. 31 home runs last year, 241, 336, 511 with a 270 ISO, a 131 WRC plus, over 473 plate appearances. Another lost season back in 23. Mediocre season back in 2022. I get it. We can get down in the dregs with Tyler O'Neill, especially when he misses time. It takes him a while to find timing when it's not there. So might be a 0 kind of a day, might be a monster kind of a day. At these prices, if I'm going to this team, Tyler O'Neill's going to be in a lot of my lineups. Colton Cowser from the left side, another masher. 8 home runs and 129 plate appearances, a 261 ISO, 12.7% barrels and 49.4% hard hits. What's not to like outside of maybe too many strikeouts, maybe too few walks? And that can be said about a lot of these hitters. David Peterson, not necessarily exploiting either of those things so far, though. Too few strikeouts, too many walks for him. So kind of collision of factors there. Following that up with Kobe Mayo, kind of interesting down lineup at 2,800, 2,300. Hasn't done much with his 82 plate appearances, but has put good wood on the ball. That's not bad. That's not bad. Just a 105 ISO to show for it. 65 WRC plus in these chances, but has more talent than that and very cheap. Even in this lineup, he's very cheap. Jacob Stallings a little bit less interesting down the bottom of the lineup, kind of dragging the average down. Mets bats, cheap O's bats. Few David Peterson shares, perfectly fine. No Tomo Sagano, though. That was too long on the first game, so we're going to skip Mariners and Yankees. No, we're not. Mariners lineup is in. Looks pretty similar to what we got. So, rookie on the bump for the Yankees. Cam Schlittler. Over 14 starts in AA and AAA. 5 of them at AAA. 9 of them at AA. A combined 2.82 ERA. Struck out 99 of 310 hitters over 76 and 2/3. 99 strikeouts in 76 and 2/3 has got to be interesting. That amounts to a 31.9% strikeout rate against 8.4% walks over that stretch. 14 starts at high-level minor leagues. In 2024, he had a 29.8% strikeout rate with 10.6% walks. That was again across AA and AAA. Started in high A. Most of that work was in high A. 86 and 2/3 in 17 starts as a 23-year-old. That was last year. But a big upside for strikeout stuff. We'll see how it translates to the show. 7,000, I think, is fair on DraftKings. I would take that shot a few times. There's enough strikeout in the Mariners lineup there's also enough danger here to go away from it. At 8,000 on FanDuel, I'm really skeptical that we would get a sixth inning here. First start out, if Boone gets 5 good innings out of this kid, he's pulling that cord. Completed the sixth 1, 2, 3, 4 times in those 14 minor league starts. Got through 7 once. Pitched into the sixth another 1, 2 times. Really skeptical that we would get a quality start opportunity here. But there could be enough strikeout to maybe pay it off at a cheap price. I don't think I'm going to do it on FanDuel. I would do it over on DraftKings for 1,000 less. Evans at 77, at 76. You can see the upside in the Yankees lineup. I think it's pretty clear. 524 implied total. Evans comes in with just a 17.4% strikeout rate, but he's going up against a Yankees lineup that on a bad day has a lot of swing and miss for you. 24.5% strikeout rate, right in line with 24.6 last year, 25% the year before for this collection of hitters. These guys do strike out, good as they are. Even Aaron Judge, 25% strikeout rate, 24 last year, 28.4 the year before that. He draws a ton of walks. Evans doesn't have a walk issue, though. 6.8% walks this year, 2.96 ERA, but a 4.34 xFIP, I think, underneath the covers. We can kind of exploit that, especially given the premium contact that he allows. So in no way am I saying I expect that he's going to beat the Yankees or put up a good fantasy score here, but I am saying for the value, it wouldn't knock me out of my chair if he did, given the strikeout downside the Yankees can give you. We saw Kyle Hendricks strike out 9 of these guys over, 7 shutout innings, and Logan Evans probably better than Kyle Hendricks. Not a lot of swinging strike in his game right now. Again, that xFIP is concerning against that ERA, and the most concerning thing by far is just the upside of these Yankees hitters, the ballpark, the environment out there today. It's a mid-90s kind of day, and he gives up a ton of premium contact for Yankee Stadium. So probably going to see the downside, probably going to see like Aaron Judge maybe capitalize on that double the magic number rating that he's pulling down in the home run model today at 21.34. Kind of absurd, but very real. Cody at a good number. Giancarlo getting his act together. Jazzy, very solid. A lot of options in the Yankees lineup as we go down that way. On the other side, though, the Mariners at 436 are very interesting. JP Crawford, especially at 3,600. Starts your lineup out great. He gets on at a 385 clip. That's exactly who he was 2 years ago when he was very valuable. He just needs his friends to come through in this lineup behind him. Julio Rodriguez has major upside against a rookie pitcher in Yankee Stadium. 45.1% hard hits this year, 11 home runs, 15 steals. Could be part of the problem given, some strikeout downside, but he's improved in his strikeout rate this year. 25% the last 2 seasons. It's around 22% this year. Just a 101 WRC plus, but an encouraging 331 XWOB, but just a 142 ISO and a lack of power output. But we know that he can come roaring back in the second half. Cal Raleigh's just ridiculous. 36 home runs now. Before the All-Star break. 392 ISO, a 183 WRC plus. Going to be hitting left-handed in Yankee Stadium. A lightly struck fly ball from Cal Raleigh could be a home run. It could be a 2 home run day before this kid's even out of the game from Cal Raleigh if they bat around. Actually, if they're batting around, Boone's probably yanked this kid in the first inning. Anyway, Randy Arozarena at 48-32, 14 homers, 15 steals on the season, getting on at a 351 clip. Creating runs 30% better than average. Remains tremendous for the price. 4,800 is still very fair on DraftKings. 32 is cheap and a little bit cheaper, I think, relative to the 48 on the FanDuel slate. Jorge Polanco, Luke Raley, Dominic Canzone, 3 interesting bats going down the lineup. Polanco can still hit the ball very hard. The numbers have been in free fall for a little while, but a 116 WRC plus still. A lot of upside there. Cheap filler at second base at the absolute worst. And then I've talked a lot about Luke Raley this season. Just 135 plate appearances, 3 home runs, 2 steals. Was injured, missed a chunk of the season. 12.2% barrels, 46.3% hard hits in the limited batted ball so far. Upswing from the last 2 seasons over which he's hit some home runs. He's stolen some bases. Very, very cheap option in the outfield or at first base. Fits either spot very well. Dominic Canzone putting great bat on ball so far. Over 80 plate appearances. He has hit 6 home runs. He's got a 273 ISO, 15.4% barrels and 46.2% hard hits. There's not necessarily anything overly predictive about that. It is results based to look at, but it's an interesting lefty bat against a rookie in Yankee Stadium with those kind of numbers, and you're not paying any kind of tax on his current performance. You're not paying for the 80 plate appearances he's already had. You're just paying a square price for who Dominic Canzone is. Last year, he had 8 home runs and 188 plate appearances. Just ignore the sub-Mendoza slash line. Year before, 220 average, 258 on base is atrocious, a 79 WRC plus, but hit 6 home runs and 182 chances. 179 ISO that year, 180 something that I scrolled past there last year. So he's always put good wood on the ball. Look at this barrel and hard hit over those 2 seasons. Low strikeout, very low walk so far this year. Makes him very interesting. It spiked up last year, but it was low in the medium sample the year before. This is an interesting bat for the cheap price in Yankee Stadium. Ben Williamson and Cole Young, just filler down toward the bottom of the lineup. Williamson, a sub 300 on base, has managed to score 31 runs from down there, which is kind of interesting. He just happens to come around a fair amount. Just given that, I mean, it's entirely just happenstance. There's nothing whatsoever predictive about that. He's hitting 256, so he's on base occasionally and becomes the wraparound guy for this lineup occasionally. That's where some of those runs are coming from, but not an overly reliable option. Between the two at the bottom, probably just comes down to position. If I'm looking to fill second base very cheap, maybe I'll mix in a Cole Young share. He does have a 6.3% barrel over 112, but hasn't cashed it in for anything. A 0.039 ISO. DJ LeMahieu DFA'd. Bye, DJ. It was a fun ride while it lasted. I'll miss you. I guess you got to take it out of my placeholder lineup in favor of Ozzy. I mentioned Ozzy before. Down the bottom of the Yankees lineup, multi-position eligible on FanDuel, second, third, and short, 2,200, 2,500. He's uniquely cheap in this Yankees lineup, and he does drive a little bit of combination factor here. So he's interesting. Dead spot so far this season. He does have 3 home runs and 146 chances, just a 157, 226, 261 slash line, a 104 ISO, a 277 XWOB, but not at all encouraging, a 37 WRC plus. This is why the Yankees are aggressively pursuing a new option at third base. Hopefully that brings some trade news in sometime soon. If you're looking for positive attributes, Ozzy does have a 7.6% barrel. That's, not great. It's not even average, but it's not nothing. He can drive the ball a little bit. He can also draw a walk, 7.5% walk rate, 9.1 last year in a very light sample. And he was that was only 11 plate appearances. Ignore last year. 2 years ago, 191 plate appearances of similar, very low end performance. So again, nobody's advocating for him being a good player or a good play outside of just he fills a correlated scoring spot and wraps back around ahead of Jason Dominguez, Aaron Judge, and so forth if he happens to get on base. Still just 25, just turned 25 too. So kid's still actually pretty young. Was a high-end prospect for this organization as recently as the beginning of last season, let alone 2023, when it was a discussion of whether it was going to be him or Anthony Volpe that broke camp with the team. Multiple seasons in the minor leagues of 2021, 18 home runs, 38 stolen bases, a very solid slash line across mostly double-A. 2022, all AAA, 19 homers, 33 steals, a very solid slash line, a 107 WRC plus, 189 ISO. 2023, 300 plate appearances in AAA, 14 homers, 16 steals, 268, 357, 479, a 211 ISO, a 109 WRC plus. That's the same atrocious, season where he had those 189 plate appearances in the show or 191 rather, of sub Mendoza and terrible performance. That same year, he was crushing AAA as a 23-year-old. As I said yesterday, as I was quoting somebody else, development is not linear. And obviously, he showed no real development yet. We're still waiting for it. But there are encouraging minor league numbers. Again, 406 minor league plate appearances last year in AAA as a 24-year-old. 13 home runs, 24 steals. Just a 95 WRC plus. Slipped in his slash line, slipped in the ISO. That's kind of concerning, obviously. But there's at least looking back over time about who this kid is. I don't even want to say once was. There's at least a silver lining here to cling to with these low prices. because you do have to embrace the spot a little bit if you want to put the Yankees together with another big upside spot. Jason Dominguez is cheap on DraftKings. 3,900 is very fair price. 32 on FanDuel. He's got 8 home runs, 14 steals, a 339 on base, a 114 WRC plus, and now he's leading off ahead of Aaron Judge, ahead of Cody Bellinger, and all that power that comes with this Yankees lineup. It's a killer spot. I don't care who you put in that spot. At these prices, I would be interested. And when you add in the fact that Jason Dominguez has an 8.5% barrel, a 50.8% hard hit, and is capable of crushing a ball on his own, love the upside there. He should be very popular at those prices. 66.49 for Aaron Judge. He should be crazy popular in this spot anyway. 34 home runs, a 360, 467, 738 slash line, 224, 124% better than average creating runs. 100% better than Cody Bellinger, who's at a 124 WRC plus, which is very, very good. Cody's got an 8.1% barrel on the season, very low strikeout, high walk, 13 home runs, excellent option for a fair price. 3,100 on FanDuel is great. 51 on DraftKings is fine. It's not cheap, but it's fine. It does make it more difficult to go like Judge, him, and Jazz in the same lineup, though, with those guys priced where they are. That said, with Giancarlo still cheap and Dominguez cheap, that is actually only, that is still pretty high. It's 49.60 with Judge's price. If we went like this, like that, does that get me? Actually, I would probably, all right. It would be Dominguez and then there. That gets you to 46.80, 4,700 a piece. Still very high priced. Challenging to put all three of those guys in a DraftKings lineup today the way they're priced. They're all very worth it. In between those guys, Giancarlo Stanton is way too cheap at 3,600. That's just funny. 2 home runs in 66 plate appearances, just a 138 ISO so far, just 241, 333, 379 slash line, but does have a 105 WRC plus, has been interesting, drawing walks, strikes out a lot, 30.3% strikeout rate. So far, 12.1% walks, obviously a very tiny sample. 50% hard hits so far, 7.9% barrels. That barrel rate's going to double before he's done. And that'll catch up in an awful hurry. A couple batted ball events is going to change that number. Giancarlo Stanton is a monster at these prices, so fire away with shares of him if you're building Yankees lineups. Jazz has been great this year, 17.4% barrels, 15 home runs, 10 steals, and just 251 plate appearances at 256 ISO. Fits 2 positions on both sites for a fair but high price. Goldie, 4,200, 2,800. Take advantage. 42.5% hard hits, 7.7% barrels. The numbers have normalized overall, but he's slashing 290, 349, 435 post-normalization. 8 home runs on the board, a 354 xWOBA under the covers, a 119 WRC plus. He's just gotten really, really cheap for a perceived downswing that isn't all that real. It is a downswing from the elite start that he had. There's one elite so far for the show. 6.66 in the home run model if you need something and you're a fan of the Mark of the Beast. Austin Wells at 38-29, 14 home runs. Hard-hitting catcher for that price on DraftKings. Lefty in Yankee Stadium against this pitcher. I'm interested. 4,200 for Volpe. 10 homers, 10 steals. He's in the lineup. He does hit the ball hard. 8.8% barrels, 42% hard hits. He swiped a few bases. 293 on base is not getting the job done. It's not paying the bills, especially with a 176 ISO, 92 WRC plus from those numbers. Not great. Yankees bats way up here, followed by the Mariners bats. Then I think followed probably by, if you're playing it, darts of Logan Evans. There's no need to actually play it, but he is there. He's not completely dead at those prices. Definitely need the downside day from the Yanks. And then Schlittler on DK as a mixer, fine. If you're just looking to take shots across 150 lineups, fine. There is upside based on his strikeout stuff. But I'm not sure how much we get there. Again, I think we're only looking at 5 innings. Probably got some Mariners bats by now. We do. Monster day for them. We talked about their lineup as a potential wild card spot. Wouldn't shock me if they got to Andrew Abbott here. Abbott does allow an 8.4% barrel rate, 20.2 degree average launch. So there's a lot of fly ball trajectory there. There's the ability to find some hard hit against him. That said, just a 2.95% home run rate so far. And interestingly, despite all those barrels that he's allowed, just 32.4% hard hits. That's very, very good. 88.1 miles an hour of exit velo on average is also very, very good. 2.15 ERA, but nearly 2 runs on top of that in the xFIP number, kind of betraying the quality a little bit. 10.7% swinging, but just a 26.6% CSW overall, not throwing enough overall strikes, called strikes necessarily. 6.5% walks is not problematic, especially against a 23% strikeout rate. It's not like he's been bad, but there are definite warts here. There are things we can nitpick a little bit. Last year, 3.72 ERA, a 4.91 xFIP, 19.5% strikeouts, 8.9% walks. Look a lot more, normal in this season. And this is kind of the underlying of what some of these numbers would suggest he really is more this kind of pitcher. Was still good at limiting hard hit and limiting exit velo, but the fly balls, the barrels, still combined to burn him for more than a 4.27% home run rate, and there's really nothing different about these numbers. So, yeah, kind of a lot of downside showing. Same thing back here. More strikeouts on deck that year, but also walked more. 3.87 ERA, but a 4.56 xFIP. Similar with a much lower than it should be CSW against a very good swinging strike rate. Last year's swinging strike rate came down some. There's a lot of flaws in Abbott, and this ballpark just works against pitchers a lot of the time. That said, it is the Marlins. I don't want to get out over our skis here talking about the downside of Andrew Abbott and the upside of the Marlins, because it probably works the other way. 95-92, though, that's a big price tag for Andrew Abbott, especially when there are other pitching options at both lower and similar prices that we like a lot. If you're looking at the Marlins, nearly a 4 implied total again. Obviously, the ability to get there. Xavier Edwards is low strikeout, high walk, interesting player, up to 292, 360, 339 after a slow start, 99 WRC plus. That could push over 100 today. No real power upside, but a contact hitter, guy who sets the table pretty well for the power that follows him. And he steals bases, 15 steals and 335 chances. Agustin Ramirez remains ludicrously cheap for his talent. In his rookie season, he's got 14 home runs on board, over 280 plate appearances, a 238 ISO, a 113 WRC plus, and he's just fulfilling his potential. Like, this is who this kid is supposed to be. 18.9% strikeout, 6.4% walks. This is all very real. 360 xWOBA. 11.5% barrels, 48.8% hard hits, and he only costs 3,800 where you have to play his position, and he's hitting second today in this ballpark against the lefty. I like the upside. Heriberto Hernandez is up to the 3 spot, 2,900, 2,600. He's slashing 338, 395, 544 with 3 home runs over 76 plate appearances, a 206 ISO, 8% barrels, 48% hard hits. When he first got called up, we looked at him and we said, maybe he finds a little something. He's kind of interesting. He's done more than that. You're not paying any kind of tax for the performance that he's had. We'll see where it goes. I'm not like fully endorsing this kid as the next big thing, but that's an interesting enough 76 plate appearances for these prices against this pitcher in this ballpark to consider him in Marlin stacks at least as a consideration. Otto Lopez, 34, 3,000. I like him less over his 307 plate appearances than I like Heriberto above him. Maybe Dane Myers a couple spots later. I think after we talked about it yesterday, they did end up dropping Myers down to the 9 spot, did they not? And he had a good day? I'm pretty sure. Overall, he's slashing 287, 338, 394, a 105 WRC plus, a 335 xWOBA. He's interesting against the lefty in the middle of the lineup in the 6th spot. Gives him some upside, 7% barrels, 42% hard hits. Just cost 3,000, 2,700. Obviously, there's a little bit of quality bat on ball there, if nothing else. Eric Wagaman has been low strikeout, sub 20%, giving you a little bit of bat on ball, but not really catching in any quality for it. A 80 WRC plus puts him 20 points below average, despite the 46% hard hit rate, the sub 20% strikeout. Does fill multiple positions on FanDuel for cheap at 25. I think he's a mixer. You probably pop him into the outfield, take a higher end corner infielder at either spot. At 31 on DraftKings, I don't love that spot. If you're going to a lot of Marlins, fine. You'll have some. It's at first base. That's fine. He's cheap, at least, but not a great position. Connor Norby at 34.26 is interesting. 5 homers, 7 steals, and 262 chances is not great. A 77 WRC plus, but another guy who can definitely square the ball up from the right side. Derek Hill, 8.3% barrels and 43.8% hard hits for 3,200 kind of works. Another guy hasn't really seen anything for it. 2 homers, 6 steals, sub 300 on base, a 71 WRC plus. Cheap mixer at the bottom though. And then Nick Fortes, 2 home runs on the board, over 117 chances. Does have a 41.3% hard hit, low strikeout, low walk. So a little bit of bat on ball for a very, very cheap catcher. More just a spot filler down there, but can fill spots. This team's looking more like the go-to offense in this game, though. 4.61 implied total for the Reds, going up against Sandy, who's only at 6,900 at 7,400 because he comes into the game with a 7.01 ERA, a problematic 4.52 xFIP. You'll note that the xFIP is 2.5 runs lower than the ERA, though. So, I mean, there is a lot of daylight there. It's just that's still a very high xFIP. Like if that was his ERA, we probably wouldn't be that interested. It's just about what we know Sandy is capable of, what he once was. And for me, at least a little bit, it's about that 106.73 rating by Stuff Plus. Means the stuff is there, right? Can find a good day against a Reds team that's got some young hitters, some overperformers, some downright bad hitters. Team with a collective 24.9% strikeout rate. I'm going to continue to believe, maybe it's because I'm a Yankee fan and I know he's destined to be on our team before the end of the season. But I'm still a believer, especially as cheap as he is. You're paying nothing for the name brand. You're paying nothing for what this guy was pre-injury. It's all about that, though. There's very little going on here outside of the way that the pitches are traveling through space and time before they get tattooed going the other way that says there's upside in Sandy today. As we've talked about before, even in the good years, more a compiler of strikeout, 23.4% strikeout rate in his Cy Young year, 2.28 ERA, a 3.29 xFIP, 228 and 2/3 in 32 starts. He was going 7-8 innings in all those starts and finding strikeout upside, finding excellent DFS upside. But it's not like he was a blow him away strikeout pitcher even then. Did have a 12.2% strikeout rate, or swinging strike rate, rather, but didn't throw enough called strikes overall. Kind of fell apart the following year, but was still very good overall. And then didn't pitch all of last year and has been problematic now. So you need the long memory. He projects out lower middle of the board. Not great, but very, very cheap. And again, I'll throw that dart a few times because that price makes few things work on FanDuel. And if we're going in there, Sandy at 74 versus Bryce Elder in that ballpark. No, thank you. Everybody else slightly more expensive. So if I don't have the 300 to spare to get up to, say, David Festa in a spot I don't fully trust against the Cubs, I just have a little bit more faith that there's something to catch in Sandy Alcantara. So that's where I'm headed. 69.74, very, very cheap, but I get it. For every Sandy share, maybe at least one red stack in a hedge position in another lineup if you're building a bunch. If you're just building one, you're taking your chances. TJ Friedel, 43-31 up top, 8 home runs, 9 steals, getting on base a ton, 366 on base. Nothing wrong with him. He's a correlated scoring option, though. You don't want TJ necessarily on his own. He's not going to give you all that much. Matt McClain at 44-29, 10 homers, 12 steals. An interesting enough bet given the raw counting stats. Underperforming his talent overall, I think is fair to say. At least drawing some walks. Not getting on base enough at a 291 clip, but hitting the ball hard, not finding the barrels at just a 6.8, but a 41.5% hard hit I'll at least take. We obviously need more upside, but he's not, well, on DraftKings at 44, he's actually not super cheap. He's affordable. 29 on FanDuel, a little bit less expensive. Ellie De La Cruz down at 5,800, 4,000. I think he was over 6,000 just the other day. 18 home runs, 22 steals, at 348 on base, a 124 WRC plus. No questions to be asked about Ellie. You just play him if you're going to Reds bats. Austin Hayes at 47-33, having a good year. Solid slash line, 122 WRC plus, handful of home runs. Does strike out a lot. 26.3% strikeout rate, kind of on theme with this team. And something that I think, on the right day, Sandy can exploit some of that strikeout rate in the middle of this lineup. Gavin Lux, Spencer Steer, 24% strikeout for both those guys. Both those guys kind of limited this year in terms of how hard they hit the ball. Both guys, not bad. Lux finding more success, 108 WRC plus versus the 95 that Steer has. But Steer's hit 10 home runs in 331 chances versus the 4 that Lux has hit in his 295. Differently priced. You get 700 in savings between Steer and Lux. I would probably lean Lux a little bit there. Grab the lefty bat if nothing else. 300 cheaper on the FanDuel slate. I could forgo a mediocre version of Spencer Steer and slightly more power in that equation. Cheap Tyler Stephenson's interesting given the 12% barrel, the 53.7% hard hits. 6 home runs, hasn't really shown a lot for the contact that he's made, but always an interesting catcher bat for cheap, especially where you have to play the position. And as I've said a few times already, where you don't have a key go-to first baseman, or I guess Spencer Steer's eligible at first base, I'd rather have Stevenson than Steer. So just play him like he's their first baseman on FanDuel. Will Benson's interesting in the outfield, given all those barrels, all that hard hit. 7 home runs and 156 chances. I think 5 or 6 of them came in an awful hurry over a weekend when he first came back. But a guy who definitely can crush baseballs. So interesting from down lineup and going to be underowned compared to some of these other Reds for people that go there. So really interesting late lineup bat. 4,000, 3,200 for Noelvi Marte, who's up to 3 home runs, 4 steals, and 88 chances. Not uninteresting. Given what the pedigree was pre-suspension, I think we can go there. Maybe the talent actually is just real. Reds bats. Andrew Abbott, cheap Sandy, Marlins bats. I think that's right. I came really close to moving the Marlins up ahead of both pitchers. I don't want to get too much into them. Rockies 3-1-3 implied total in Fenway Park. Doesn't really work that well going up against this form of Lucas Giolito. Overall, 3.66 ERA, a 4.02 xFIP, 21.1% strikeout rate for Giolito. Over 12 starts and 66 and change innings. Just okay kind of numbers, but really seems to have rounded a corner as far as depth goes and has been effective at limiting runs. Over his last 5 starts, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, 3 of them went exactly 6. Quality start in each of them. One of those games, he did give up 4 runs, but only 2 of them were earned. That was against the Giants at San Francisco. The other 2, no earned runs in either performance. Then went 7 against the Blue Jays, no earned runs in that game. 1 unearned run. Has actually given up a few unearned runs along the way here. 1 unearned run, 6 hits, 5 strikeouts against the Jays, and then 7 2/3 last time out, just 1 earned run on 4 hits against the Nats. Struck out 7, walked 3, 10 strikeout game over that stretch against the Mariners. He's really putting it together over the last, over June, essentially, after getting obliterated in his first start of June by the Angels. 7 earned runs, less than just an inning and 2/3. Faced 14 Angels, gave up 7 earned, just 1 home run in there, struck out 1 and walked 1. So I think you fire away with some fairly priced Giolito on DraftKings. 8,500 works really, really well from near the top of the board. A little bit of a discount to the other comparably projected pitchers. On FanDuel, there's nothing wrong with him at 97. Again, this is a better pitcher with more strikeout stuff than Brian Bayo on the overall when he's going right. I like the upside for Giolito to have a tremendous start here. So does Vegas at a 3-1-3 implied total. There's a little power showing for the Rockies around the obvious guys. Giolito he is a fly ball trajectory pitcher. So 43.4% hard hits, 90.5 miles an hour of exit velo on a 17.3 degree average launch. The ball can absolutely get out of the park against him. Wouldn't shock me if he had a good 6 or 7 inning start with 10 strikeouts or call it 8 strikeouts, but gave up 3 earned runs, maybe 4 earned runs on a home run and a couple doubles. Wouldn't shock me. That's in the cards here. But that's the downside start. I don't think there's all that much more for the Rockies beyond that. So even with that, if he finds the strikeout stuff, and 21.9% strikeouts is bolstered in that average by that 0 for Austin Nola so far, the true number, let's call it 24.6. Can I interest you in that? And through the heart of the lineup, all the hard hitters, 26.9. A lot of Ks here. Going the other way, Sensatella, do not play him against the Red Sox. 11% strikeouts. Giving up plenty of premium contact for the Red Sox to exploit. The one thing he can do is he's cutting into their home run numbers a little bit. They look a little bit funky in the top stacks tool because they rate out really, really well for projections for Vegas total, et cetera, value on both sites. But their home run mark is like 18th because of Sensatella's 8.8 degree average launch angle. That said, with that, he's still at a 3.36% home run rate this year. Last year, over 12 1/3, it was a 5.56, but you can't really count that. It was a 16.5 degree average launch. Year before that, in just 7 2/3, you can't really count that one either. Back in 2022, over 92 1/3, similar 2.18% home runs on a 6.7 degree average launch. Was good at limiting barrels that season, but was still bad overall. Incredibly exploitable. There's a lot of contact, there's a lot of sequencing, and a lot of hard hit available for the Red Sox today. And nothing about Sensatella says that these guys can't take them over the wall. So a lot more upside than maybe the home run model shows for the Red Sox, but you can see it in the projections. Everybody rates out well. They're all at fair prices. 4,800 is your highest price. It's on Willie Abreu over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, they're more expensive. for sure, the 3,600 on Trevor Story is a lot more expensive. 35 up top for Jarren Duran, 34 for Willier. Fair prices all. Romy Gonzalez at 33, not against the lefty. I question a little bit, but hits the ball very hard overall. So definitely workable players, but more expensive on your FanDuel slate overall. I think I said overall 3 times in that sense. Up at the top of the Rockies lineup, if you're looking to go there, Tyler Freeman at 42.29, holding down a very strong slash line, a 136 WRC plus over 170 plate appearances. Has been really, really good for this team. Obviously, we like getting there when we're at Coors Field, but there's advantage hitting in Fenway Park just the same. It's just this form of Giolito, I don't love attacking, but if I'm going to the Rocks, 4,200, 2,900 is the right price for Freeman. Like him at second base quite a bit on FanDuel. If I'm going there, I'll take him in the outfield on DraftKings. 39, 3,000 is fair for Jordan Beck. 10 home runs, 10 steals, right at league average via WRC plus, but better than that. His hit the ball very hard, 11.3% barrels. Ryan McMahon has 12 home runs. Maybe a audition for the AL East in these series while they're on this side of the country. Definitely on the trade block and probably not going to be in a Rockies uniform all that much longer. Doing Ryan McMahon things, dozen home runs, a 162 ISO, just an 80 WRC plus. His quality comes and goes. Michael Talia could play up for power in this ballpark for sure. 3,000, 2,800 is a fair price, 8.5 in the home run model. 10 on the season in an otherwise very bad season that got him sent to AAA, bounced back down there. Has been interesting since coming back up, but only, 2-3 home runs in that stretch of handful of games over the last few weeks. Not uninteresting, not a real reason to go to the Rockies at such a low total, though. Brenton Doyle's good, 12% barrels, 46.8% hard hits, but another guy not finding anything despite the quality of contact. 315 almost completely empty plate appearances, a 52 WRC plus. Orlando Arcia, Yanquiel Fernandez, mix and match quality down lineup. Fernandez does have good pedigree. He's one of their top prospects. He's dead min priced on both sites. So if you're looking to just average a price down, if you're looking for, honestly, a semi-interesting one-off even, maybe you throw him into the mix somewhere just because he's dead min priced. Kyle Farmer is a mix and match quality player. First base, I don't love Farmer. Even at 25 on DraftKings, there's not a ton there. As a mixer at second base, when nobody goes to him, you can get there, but there's very, very little reason to consider the Rockies, let alone the bottom of the Rockies today. So don't love the spot for Farmer, a player that we'll go to from time to time when we dabble with the Rockies. Austin Nola's never been much of a bat at the catcher spot. So these cheap on DraftKings Red Sox, or let's say affordable. Jarren Duran, 45-35 across sites, 7 home runs, 15 steals, a 101 WRC plus in a very underwhelming season after he was great last year, but is hitting the ball harder. 9.4% barrels and 47.2% hard hits, both up from last season. Remains incredibly interesting, especially against a pitcher who's going to let him put good wood on the ball 3-4 times tonight. Roman Anthony, 42, 3,000. Get him while he's cheap. Kid's going to go up in price, 10.8% barrels, 53.8% hard hits out of the gate. He's just good. He's a burgeoning star. Again, get him while he's cheap. Trevor Story has just been good. 15 homers, 14 steals now. Not getting on base a lot, 291 on base, a 91 WRC plus, but everything else and everything we really need from him is entirely intact. 10+% barrels, 47% hard hits. Willier, their best bat from the left side, 17 home runs on the board, a 241 ISO, a 122 WRC plus, 12.5% barrels, 45% hard hits. Their most expensive player for a reason. He's quite good. Needs to find more plate appearances against lefties. Carlos Narvaez, 3,900, 2,900, 7 homers on the board. An interesting season for Narvaez so far. Outplaying Connor Wong overall. That's why he took his job. 10.2% barrels, 42% hard hits, a 117 WRC plus. Nobody saw any of this coming. It might evaporate in the second half. You are not really paying a tax at 39 where you have to play catchers. 29 is fine where you don't have a first baseman at all in this team. Masataka Yoshida back in the lineup, 3,000, 2,600. That's interesting. Did not notice that. Just made a handful of plate appearances down on the farm over the last few days. Starting on July 2nd. Played in 5 games for Pawtucket and their AA team. Whoops. So that's interesting. He hits the ball hard. 6.6% barrels, 40.6% hard hits 2 years ago. Slipped a little bit for hard hit last year, but still had a 280, 349, 415 season. Creator runs 15% better than average. 10 home runs. Year before was a little bit more interesting for Pop. 15 home runs that year, 289, 338, 445. A very capable, solid bat for these prices in the heart of the lineup. I like that a lot. Romy Gonzalez, again, 12.6% barrels, 60+% hard hits. Most of his work comes against left-handed pitching. It'll be interesting to see him today. 144 very good plate appearances, though. Wouldn't shock me if he had a good game. That said, kind of priced up on both sites. Second base eligible, though. Marcelo Mayer, another high-end option. Cheap at second base. Third base works for me. 2,900 on DraftKings. Shortstop and third base, sure, why not on FanDuel? 2,600 over there. 4 home runs on the board and 107 plate appearances. An underwhelming slash line, but he's hit the ball very, very hard. 50.7% hard hits, 9% barrels. 90% would be ridiculous. A 190 ISO, which is where the 90 came from. David Hamilton steals bases. Just a 220 on base, but 15 stolen bases and 129 plate appearances. That's a pretty hilarious collision of circumstances there. That means he's stolen a base basically every time he's been on. Anyway, Red Sox way up here. Lucas Giolito, and really not much from the Rockies. A few darts of Rockies bats over 150 is fine. As a contrarian squad, they're much more miss than they are hit. They're very, very hit and miss. When they do hit, they can hit in a big way, but it's probably not the right spot for it. Cubbies, as mentioned, really let me down yesterday. I was expecting them to be quite a bit better than what we got. That said, I'll go right back to the well. David Fest is talented, but there's definitely upside in this Cubs lineup. And if people go to other teams in other directions, especially coming off a disappointing day, maybe we get them a little bit under own. That said, Nico, Reese McGuire, John Birdie, bottom of the lineup, not great. But I love the top 6 here at least, and I'll play Nico because he's affordable, fills out second base on either side, gets on base at worst. I don't love that he's followed immediately by McGuire and Birdie in this version of the lineup, but top 6 very much works. Ian Happ, we talked about yesterday, and disappointing season drawn down by a bad month overall, but still getting on base, 330 on base overall, a 105 WRC plus, 12 homers, went on a stretch with 5 home runs in June, so hit for a little bit more power, but it was a bad overall month. That said, 22.6% strikeouts, 13% walks. Both those numbers look very much like Ian Happ over time. Lost a little bit in barrel and hard hit year over year from last year, but those numbers are pretty much similar to 2023. So there's still a lot to like in Ian Happ, and he gets the leadoff role every single day ahead of Kyle Tucker, ahead of Seiya Suzuki, PCA. There's tons and tons of upside in this lineup. 6,000, 4,000 for Tucker, entirely fair for the superstar that he is. 17 home runs, 22 steals, a 229 ISO, a 152 team leading. Second on the team, WRC plus. Apologies to Michael Busch at a 165. God damn. 322 excellent plate appearances out of Michael Busch. 4,900, I don't really understand why he's still that cheap. 3,400 is honestly still too cheap on FanDuel too. They're just doing you favors with some of these prices, letting you combine Cubs bats here. These guys are all high priced and very fairly so. Happ, you could argue, is a little bit cheap, but there's justification in the underperformance maybe. Busch is like this year's Mark Vientos at 49. They need to get that above 5,000, but it lets you combine these guys. And then Dansby not having a bad year. 15 home runs on the board, up to a 304 on base after the on base was underwhelming, and it needs to push up even higher. But this is a good season. 104 WRC plus, a 347 underlying xWOBA, 11.4% barrels, and 45.2% hard hits, bouncing back for hard hits and barrels. Love the upside at those prices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with apologies to PCA. It's like the Yankees, 49.60. Still very high priced. But at least you get some cheaper bats. I feel like you can get that together a little bit. Maybe you do need to work the Birdie share into it, though. At the dead min, Birdie's not completely dead. Down lineup. Does steal bases. Doesn't get on enough. Doesn't hit the ball hard or do anything else overly interesting. Last year in 74 chances, 273, 342, 318, stole 5 bags. In 425 the year before, he was interesting. 296, 345, 406. Just 16 steals, which is a little bit odd, but 104 WRC plus. The year before that, he stole 41 bags despite a 324 on base over 404 plate appearances. So again, just a weird collision of results there for birdie. I don't love having to put him at third base on DK. I'd much rather have him at second. And he's just kind of an alternative for a cheaper price to Nico. They do very similar things on the field when they're both going right. But it's probably you go there. Maybe we forgo Hap then. And we go 1, 2 there. And like that. That gets us to 45 right on the nose. It's probably not your best overall combination of these bats. Maybe it's more a 3-man today. But it does at least get you a little bit more affordably priced on some of those bats in the middle if you go down to that birdie share. McGuire, interesting barrel rate and hard hit rate over 62 plate appearances, has hit 5 home runs, 271 ISO. They're just getting upside catcher performance from everybody. Last season, over 158 plate appearances, he only hit 3 home runs. Year before that, over 206, he only hit 1 home run. Year before that, over 274, he only hit 3 home runs. So in those years combined, in basically a full season of baseball, right? That's 639 plate appearances. He hit 7 home runs, and in 62 this year, he has 5. Which number you want to believe? PCA has been tremendous, entirely worth the money at 56.42. It's just, I kind of lean Kyle Tucker. I kind of lean Seiya Suzuki because Suzuki is slightly outperforming PCA. 140 WRC plus to PCA is 134, a 366 xWOBA to the 351, a 295 ISO to the 275, 25 home runs to 23 home runs. You do have more steals from PCA, so maybe some bigger upside fantasy games from time to time. But between the two, I'll lean to a cheaper Suzuki, bigger number in the home run model. Very, very interesting bat. Disappointed on his first day on the Dynasty team. Needs to get his shit together. Nico's playable from down lineup, 39-29. Again, Dansby's really interesting. The Festa shares at 24.2% strikeouts. He is on the board. You can get some of these Cubs for Ks. There's some very low strikeout hitters that bolster the average a little bit, but if you just look at like the stretch of power bats there, the leadoff hitter, and then the bottom 2 guys, that's a 23.6% average. So Festa could get there. 13.4% swinging strikes, just a 26.1% CSW against that is atrocious. Pitching to a 5.48 ERA, but a 4.18 xFIP under the covers. 24.2% Ks against too many walks, way too many barrels. This is where your downside's going to come from with these Cubs. You can see it in the home run model. 10.7% barrels, 90.1 miles an hour of exit velo, 40.5% hard hits. We are over the threshold in all 3 of those indicators. A little bit lucky to be at 3.76% home runs. That's a high number on its own, but it could be over 4%. Going the other way, Cade Horton at 65.72, just 16.9% strikeouts in his rookie year, 4.15 ERA, 4.45 xFIP. Does have a very solid 11.3% swinging strike rate, though. Not finishing hitters off, but finding some whiffs along the way makes him at least interesting. I don't think we're going here with the Twins drawing nearly a 5 implied total and some similarly low projections from similarly cheap pitchers. Between the two, I definitely lean David Festa. He projects out a little bit better, obviously a higher price, but right now he's the more developed higher end of these 2 pitchers. Horton does have a good pedigree. They expect him to turn into a good pitcher. Right now, kind of mid at best. Down lineup with the Twins. Byron Buxton, 12.01 in the home run model, continues to mash. He's up to 20 on the season, 16 steals, a 274 ISO. Just looks a lot like Byron Buxton to me. He's fully priced, but worth it. Willie Castro at 4,000, 3,000. Mix and match at worst. It's a good year for Willie so far. 269 plate appearances, 269, 362, 436. A 126 WRC plus. 8 home runs, 8 steals. They should probably flop Willie and Byron Buxton in this lineup. I would rather have Byron Buxton hitting second and driving Willie in, but they'll do what they will. They're the Twins. Trevor Larnach, 39-31, 12 home runs on the season, over 346 chances. Just a 169 ISO. Could find some more hard hits, some more barrels. He lost about 3 points a barrel over the last season over season, and down 3 points the year before, year over year. So there is more lurking power there for Larnach. 6.49 in the home run model. Not nothing, but the guy from a couple seasons past would have been higher. Ryan Jeffers at 34-29, 7 home runs on the year, a 154 ISO, a very interesting 110 WRC plus, very solid on base if nothing else. Hits the ball squarely, 7.9% barrels, 43.2% hard hits. Not lighting the world on fire in those departments, but square hitting. Carlos Correa, 6.1% barrels, 44.1% hard hits. Hard hits are in line with what they ought to be. Barrels are still down. 260, 302, 384, 91 WRC plus. I get why people don't play him. I'll continue to go there. I'm a believer in the second half here. 3,300, 2,600, 7 home runs on the board. He hasn't been bad. We just haven't seen the big upside. We saw a great half season last year. I'll continue to harp on that point until it comes true. 2,800, 2,500 for Royce Lewis is very, very cheap. I know he hasn't been good over 134 chances, but he's been very, very good in plate appearances of seasons past. He's just always banged up. Needs to find form, but still 10.7% barrels, 44.7% hard hits in his batted ball events. Looks a hell of a lot like those numbers. 14.2% strikeouts is an improvement on those. 9% barrels is in line with expectations. So in a lot of ways, this hasn't been a lost 134 plate appearances. We just haven't seen the result for it yet. But there's a lot of stuff there to say that it's about to happen or, the pop is coming. So he's just cheap. I would take advantage right now while he's still cheap against this pitcher. Matt Wallner, 35-28, similar, 200, 299, 431, 8 home runs and 184 chances. That comes in spite of a 13.2% barrel, a 48.1% hard hit, striking out nearly 30%, but that's down from 36.4 last year, from 31.5 the year before, so you could argue there's improvement there. 10.9% walks is up from last year's 9.2, right around 2 years ago's 11%. 329 XWOB is not blowing people away, but at least it's more stable than that slash line. 231 ISO is really, really interesting. That's a star caliber ISO. 103 WRC plus, despite being at the Mendoza line, is kind of interesting, despite being at a sub 300 on base. That's a weird collision of factors here. Matt Wallner's a lot better than this. Ty France at 32-27 is a mix and match caliber first baseman. Harrison Bader at 29-27 is a mix and match caliber outfielder who is finding his upside. 11 home runs on the year, a 189 ISO, 117 WRC plus, 11.4% barrels. We've seen stretches like this from Harrison Bader, but this is becoming one of the more extended stretches. He is getting on base a lot too to bolster the overall numbers. Not dead at the bottom of the lineup, kind of filling that sneaky Michael A. Taylor role from years past for the Twins down the bottom of the lineup here. Let me give him another shot and say, despite the slightly higher run total, I'm going to take the away team here and go Cubs, very close behind him, Twins, David Festa, then Cade Horton. At 65 as an SP2, just as a pure bargain bin dart, it's not completely crazy to consider a few Horton shares. At 72 on FanDuel, I probably don't do it, but that is very, very cheap. Easily the lowest point of that game, though. Speaking of low points, the Pittsburgh Pirates are in this game. Got their lineup as well. Love the upside for Chris Bubic, one of the top projected pitchers of the day. Going to be one of the more highly owned pitchers of the day, I would have to think. Yeah, he was at the top of the board when I sorted for ownership before, so I'm going to say that's a big yes. Ooh. No, it's not. That's awfully interesting for DraftKings. Huh. I don't know if that changed or maybe it just wasn't actually sorted. He is their 6th most highly projected ownership pitcher. Several of the cheap options, actually just one, Sandy, getting out ahead of him. And then, I mean, they're cheaper than him, but I don't really get a couple other lefties on this slate. Let's put it that way. Against better teams, getting more ownership. I get the top two. Top two are two of the big righties of the day. One very obvious against the worst team on the slate is the most highly owned pitcher. Makes a ton of sense. The other challenging matchup, very highly owned. I would undercut the ownership on that big righty and take it and put it directly into shares of Chris Bubic. They're separated by about 700, with Bubic being the more expensive of the two. But you got plenty of value to work with. That's really interesting. Sorry to have left the lineup screen sitting there for you. You can see Bubic's numbers. 25.6% strikeout rate at 2.36 ERA. Obviously, the 3.42 xFIP is the real number. It's a full run higher, but he's been really good. And even if he was pitching to that as his ERA, it would still be good. 14% swinging strikes, a 30.6% CSW to throw at a Pirates lineup that has a 22.5% strikeout rate, which is slightly above average, but that's bolstered by 18-4 and 15-8 from IKF and Jared Triolo, two entirely non-threatening hitters down lineup. Everybody else, that's a 24.1% strikeout rate. If you take out Nick Gonzalez, another guy who's in here just because there's a lefty on the mound, we're at 25-5 for all their key bats. This is a bad team. There's a reason we've been targeting this team over and over and over again with pitchers. 3.68 implied total helps tell that story. On the other side, a 4.93 implied total for the Royals puts them very, very firmly on the board. You could see solid mid-range home run model numbers for a lot of their key bats. The Vinnies, the Sals, the Witts, the Michaels of the world, all in decent range in the home run model. This team's more than just home run hitting, though. There's a lot of good on-base skills here. There's a lot of good correlated scoring options here. They're very, very low strikeout, and they're facing Bailey Falter, who comes in with a 15% strikeout rate and 8.6% walk. 3.69 ERA somehow, but a 4.84 xFIP is the very real number here for Mr. Falter. I don't really understand how he's gotten to a 3.69 ERA with all these numbers. That is pure luck, distilled down to its pure form. that was poorly put. 18 starts. He hasn't, I guess, been completely atrocious, but everything about this says that he ought to be. Very exploitable spot for Royals bats. Don't go to Bailey Falter. I wouldn't really consider that much Pirates. Maybe a few oddball shares around McCutch. Take some faith with Brian Reynolds. O'Neal Cruz, obviously, you mix in 5,300, 3,300 to face a high-end lefty is not ideal, though. Nick Gonzalez is just cheap, but not much of a bat. 282, 336, 462. He's been good over those 128 plate appearances. 119 WRC plus. Can put decent bat on ball. 7.1% barrel, 7.9 last year. 36.6% hard hits last year. In the small sample, up to 43.9. We'll see where that goes. These are outlier numbers on the high side for Nick Gonzalez so far. Brian Reynolds is dramatically underperforming. 10 home runs, 226, 291, 374 is not who that guy is. I think he's just playing his way out of town. McCutchen, another very solid 328 plate appearances out of the old man. 8 home runs, an excellent 337 on base, a 103 WRC plus. He just wants to stay there. They just want him there. He is apparently one of 2 guys with Paul Skeens that are on their untouchable list. That said, if the Yankees or somebody came calling with a monster offer for the Pirates, I don't know that they really turn it down. I don't know that McCutch turns down an opportunity to come back to the Yanks and try and chase a World Series too. That's the limit of their interesting bats, though. Maybe Joey Bart at 2,800, 9.4% barrels, 41.4% hard hits. It's a matter of just 1 home run and a .054 ISO. That's hard to do on that kind of premium contact over 212 plate appearances. Ke'Bryan Hayes hits the ball squarely, but does not see any results for it over an extended entire career. Jared Triolo is a mix and match at the absolute best. Sub Mendoza right now, 250 on base and 43 WRC plus, and IKF has never been more than a singles hitter. On the Royals side, underperforming Jonathan India is just cheap, and he's just going to keep getting these leadoff opportunities. He's a direct correlated scorer with the bats that you want. He's easier to reach on the 5-man site than on the 4-man. It does kind of suck to have to leave one of these guys on the table in favor of India. So more often than not, I'll skip over India on FanDuel while probably trying to include him on DraftKings because of that correlation. But there's a lot to work with in these top 6 spots. A lot of power, a lot of premium contact, good on base skills. Everyone in that group is, well, damn it, Sal. Everyone in the top 4 is appreciably below a 20% strikeout rate. I was looking at last year. Everybody was below a 20% strikeout rate last year, and believably low strikeout. Lurking power still with Sal Perez, with Jack Caglianone down lineup. Jack, is it just a 148, 203, 261 slash line? Maybe needs a sprinkle more seasoning. Maybe needs to go back on the grill for a couple minutes down in AAA, find a few more home runs, find his timing. Has been scuffling at the major league level, but there's lurking power for sure. 3 home runs in that bad stretch. Kid's got talent. It just hasn't completely landed yet. Sal landed a long time ago, giving us tremendous seasons over time, and he's hitting the ball just like he did in a lot of those seasons, or better. 11 home runs, a 166 ISO. The results have been weird. They've been off, but it's gotten Sal down to a $3,500 price where you have to play catchers. And I'll remind you that he's facing Bailey Falter today. Monster upside spot for Sal. Michael Garcia is just having a good year. 44-31 continues to be very affordable for the numbers he's putting up. 305, 364, 464. Creating runs 29% better than average to lead this team. I don't really understand why he's still so cheap. Same thing with Vinny. Outside of that ugly first month that he had, he's been very, very good. 15 home runs. He's going to end up peaking for home runs this year. 19 last year. 9 the year before. 10 the year before that. It's going to be a career high in home runs for Vinny. This is exactly the results we were calling for. He's barreled just a few more balls this year. It's just a little bit of happenstance, but it's all these hard hits and all the barrels on the low strikeout, the low walk, and it'll get lower as he continues through the second half. It's just all that finally just kind of cashing in for a few more good batted ball events, a few more good results. He's also driven in 56. He's an excellent source. Again, nothing predictive about RBIs, just a lot of happenstance. It's more down to who's in front of you than anything else. But he gets those opportunities because the guys in front of him are excellent at getting on base and have been. Last year, he drove in 97 runs in 554 plate appearances, and for a long time was one of the league leaders in RBIs. Just excellent person to cash in opportunities because he puts so many balls in play. Bobby Witt's a superstar and very obvious at 59-41. Chris Bubich, Royals bats after him just because there's bigger upside spots on the slate, but they could easily bend this slate against this pitcher. Anything Pirates is just a dart throw. They rank behind the Royals in every way. Let me catch up on chat. I've been trying to rifle us through this slate. 525. Apologies for not ignoring you guys. I'm always thinking about you. I'm never ignoring you. But apologies for focusing on just getting through these games for a minute here. Osastic says, yep, good pickup from Minnesota. For who are we talking about? I don't know who that's in reference to, but sure. Metzos is postponed already? Damn it. All right, that sucks. Losing that game. I really wanted to play some of those big Mets bats in that spot. Jose Ramirez out of the All-Star game. Isaac Paredes in. This is always a good sign. Cashman on Anthony Volpe. He's our shortstop. I know he's going to be part of the solution rather than the problem. That's not great. Beginning of the season, he was essentially trying to bet reporters that Volpe was going to have a monster year. Boone says, Ozzy Peraza, Yorbi Vivas, JC Escada are third base option. We're going to play JC at third base now. Neymar Candelario and Nicky Lopez are viewed as AAA depth. Can I manage this team for 5 goddamn minutes? Just give me one crack. Give me 20 minutes with the 40 man. Let me fix this. If I can make a few phone calls, even better. This is not that hard. Oh, Bader. Yeah. Bader is an interesting player, right? He's a above average player who's a good outfielder. In a non-predictive kind of a sense, just in a baseball way. High hustle player. Dude who's always out there running as hard as he can, tracking down fly balls and everything. So I liked him as a Yankee, but he was never more than a little bit better than average as a bat. He can cash in some big games for sure. I do agree that it's a good pickup as like a depth guy, as a 10th man, off the bench, fourth outfielder and so on. And he's capable of holding down a starting job if he has to. So yeah, good pickup. Miz destroyed the Dodgers last night. Yeah, Michael, I talked about that right off the top of the show. I wanted to call it out because I was saying maybe not the day for the Miz. And after that Shohei home run, he definitely just absolutely eviscerated them for 12 strikeouts. Monster. Kid's good, man. Kid's really good. Had me shaking my head about that Chrissy Sanchez trade. I really hope that wasn't a miscalculation for the second half. Nats sub 4 implied total. Again, it's really all about the top of the Nationals lineup if we're going here at all. We do have it confirmed. It looks pretty much like this one. Josh Bell moving up to the 4 spot. So Bell and Nathaniel Lowe swapping places. Bell's definitely been hitting the ball hard this year. The results have been mixed. He is up to 11 home runs, a 155 ISO, and 91 WRC plus are obviously disappointing, but a 344 xWOBA under the surface is not uninteresting. Comes on 10.5% barrels, 45.2% hard hits, 17.3% strikeout rate, and a 10.1% walk. There's a lot to like in terms of getting back on form as compared to how he was last year. And there's just a lot in the raw sense. Even the strikeout and walk are better than 2 years ago when he was putting up similar batted ball numbers. 2,900, 2,700, very playable at worst against a high contact pitcher like Andre Pallante. Pallante, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the one positive attribute he really, really has is this negative 1.8 degree average launch, his ability to keep balls down, keep the ball in the yard for the most part. But even with that, 3% home runs is not nothing. 7.3% barrels. So the mistakes, when he makes them, definitely get up and out of the yard at a fair clip. He's just a 15.8% strikeout pitcher. Despite it, decent enough, 10.1% swinging. 24.7% CSW is atrocious. 4.10 ERA, but a very tidy 3.64 xFIP. He's not bad, but he's also not good. He's high contact. He needs to just, pitch to contact, get some defense behind him, get the ground balls, get out of trouble, and pitch his way through 6 or 7 innings. He is good for depth. That's what keeps him in the conversation for a few DFS shares from time to time. Wouldn't shock me if he had a capable day at 7,200, at 7,800 on FanDuel. He's in the mix because the quality start bonus is there. I wish he was a little bit cheaper in like the 74 range, kind of like where Sandy is. If I had him as an alternative to that spot, he'd be more interesting on FanDuel. Paying up from Sandy Alcantara to Andre Pallante is a little bit of a challenge for me. But 7 innings of one hit ball his last time out against the Pirates. Playable spot in that for DFS. Only struck out 3, walked 2, but 1 hit, no runs, obviously is pretty good. 5 innings of 2-run balls, 7 hits, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks, a home run allowed. Gets a little bit bumpy there on DraftKings over just 5 innings against the Cubs in the start before that. 6 shutout innings against the Reds, 3 hits, 4 strikeouts, and a walk in that one. That was the best performance in a minute. He's got a trio of 7 strikeout games in his game log this year, but obviously very, very low end overall. This Nationals lineup, most of their top bats up here, pretty good at limiting strikeout, outside of James Wood, who's pretty good at doing everything else. So in no way is this a good spot or a safe spot for Andre Pallante, and I doubt he spikes a big strikeout total against this team. Even with like low swinging at everything this year, even with an exploitable Riley Adams down lineup for a couple of plate appearances, everybody else is pretty low strikeouts. So it doesn't look like a great Pallante spot. On the other side, Mackenzie Gore, in a big, big way, is on my board. 9,800 on DraftKings, 96 on FanDuel. Top projected pitcher of the day. So I'm quite, again, as I said at the beginning, quite a bit lower projected over on the site where I every now and again look at ownership. And I don't get it. 3.11 ERA, a 3.19 xFIP, a 30.5% strikeout rate. That's one of the highest of the day. 14.5% swinging strikes. It's been tremendous. He's given up a little bit of barrel on a fly ball trajectory, a little bit of hard hit, exit velo for sure. This is approaching our limit. That's over. That's at our threshold. A little bit lucky maybe to be at a 2.56% home run. If we want to nitpick those stuff pluses below average for the full arsenal, but I'll bet you that he's got a couple pitches that are well above. So if you don't want to go there, fine. He is high priced and there's other options in that range that project similarly. But to me, this looks like a good spot. And if I can get him a little lower owned than he ought to be at a discount from some of the other top pitchers, I'll take it. I'll go after this Cards lineup with him. No doubt about it. 4.31 implied total feels high. And like I said before, the 3.78 on the Nationals side feels low. That should even out by swing a quarter point in the Nationals direction and put them both around 4. Makes a lot more sense to me. If you're looking to roster Nats against him, or Cards against him rather, I think you can get there, but we're going to an already kind of mediocre type lineup. Several of their best hitters are lefties. I don't love it. Maybe if they're contrarian, they are affordable. Everybody's inexpensive in that lineup, but you got 43 on Wilson Contreras, kind of underperforming his talent overall, or just maybe coming down the other side of the mountain. 4,200 on Brendan Donovan, probably overperforming by a little bit, but having a very good year. They're a little more affordable on FanDuel. They feel just purely cheap on the FanDuel slate, where they're just affordable on DraftKings, they're fine, but I'm not looking to target Mackenzie Gore. Top of the Nats, CJ Abrams, James Wood, 57, 59, and 34, 41. A little bit more affordability on the FanDuel slate. A dozen home runs and 19 steals, a 135 WRC plus for CJ, a 157 WRC plus for James Wood, who, I made judging comparisons yesterday. He's been just immense for this team so far and going to just get better. Ahmed Rosario is entirely skippable in the 3 spot. 274, 317, 415, a 105 WRC plus. A very interesting 358 xWOBA to throw into the mix, actually. 4 home runs and 145 chances. He is low strikeout, low walk, so there is frequency of contact in play. 44.8% hard hits, despite just a 4.3% barrel. I feel like maybe a little bit of overperformance there. The xWOBA would disagree. Playable, but also skippable. Let's put it that way. Second base is where you want him if you go there. Mentioned Josh Bell already. Again, 11 home runs. Otherwise, not great in a lot of areas, but a lot of things to like about the underlying numbers. Nathaniel Lowe, good season for power this year, 13 home runs. He's also driven in a bunch of runs, as I just mentioned before with Vinny. That's a lot of happenstance. It's more about the guys when he was hitting third, 358 and 390 on base in front of him just leads to a ton of opportunities. You're just going to cash a few of those in. Overall, he's been a 232, 299, 397 hitter, in no way reminiscent of the guy you used to get on base at a very effective clip. If he was doing those things, he'd be really interesting here. 36, 3,000 with positional conflict against Josh Bell. I'm going to go the other way now and start saying Josh Bell is the more interesting of those two options right now. Alex Cole, Brady House, Riley Adams, Jacob Young. There's nothing really special about any of those bats. Alex Cole's having an okay year at 293, 82, 396, a 123 WRC plus. Just a correlated scorer, though, and look at the guys behind him in the lineup for 3 spots. Not a great spot for a correlated scoring type bat. He's okay. Not really an end cap to a stack through the middle there, and especially on DK where you got to make a Sophie's choice there. So I'm going, all right, 2 top end guys, a guy I could take or leave, one or the other of these guys, then Alex Call, and then what? I guess we are including Ahmed Rosario and just doing the obvious there. It's a 41.60 average, so you're paying 42 for that when we're seeing 45s and 47s for higher end teams with higher end names in each spot. Outside of maybe these two. So, tough day, I think, for Nat stacks, especially if Palante's on par and keeping the ball in the yard. If you're going to the Cards, it's maybe the slightly more believable spot, but I don't know that that's necessarily true against Gore. Again, he's just really good, unless I'm missing something. I don't think I am. Last time out, 5 1/3, just 2 earned runs. Only struck out 2 in that game. Strikeouts have taken a bit of a dip recently. I'll give you that. Had a 5 earned run game against the Dodgers, but it was the Dodgers. 4 strikeouts, 4 walks in that one. 6 strikeouts, 3 walks, but only allowed 1 earned run on 5 hits over 6 innings at the Padres. Low strikeout team. Still pitching deep into games. 6, 7 innings in almost every one of his starts this year. I don't know. I don't get it. Mason Wynn's just a mix and match caliber player, 3,800, 2,900. I could take or leave him in the 2 spots, similar to Ahmed Rosario and the 3 on the other side. Alec Burleson at 39, 27, 11 home runs, 293, 33, 467, a 352 xWOBA and a 123 WRC plus make him interesting. He's affordably priced, but he's not special. He's mostly just another outfielder if you really break it down. He is low strikeout, medium walk. You get a fair amount of good contact. But there's not a lot that's overly special against a really good lefty. Nolan Arenado back in the lineup, 37, 29, 10 home runs. Nothing special about him anymore, unfortunately. You can go there just fine and take the formerly big righty bat who's just not that guy anymore against the lefty, and probably advisable to do so if you're going to Cards, but he's not a draw in any way. 5.18 in the home run model today. Joel Pozo, 2,500, 2,300. Sure, mix and match your way to some shares of that. If you're already going to the Cards, why not? He's cheap at the catcher spot. So is Pedro Paz, 2 spots later. Paz has 6 home runs to the 3 that Pozo's hit in 85 plate appearances. Lars Nootbaar, lefty, 4,000, 2,800, has been bad overall this season, but remains one of their most interesting hitters. Does still put good wood on the ball. And then Victor Scott just can maybe steal you a bag if he happens to get on. 22 steals with a 321 on base. Mackenzie Gore, way up top. Nats bats Cards, bats, take that. Andre Palante bringing up the bottom. I do think all four things in this game are playable. And I'm tempted to say the Cards, bats are honestly on the bottom, but that's burnt me a few times already this year, so I won't. Guardians, Rangers, Diamondbacks, Braves game still to go. Lot of show left. Coming up on 5:38. I do need to pick up the pace. We always get to this point. Guardians and Astros lineups are in. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe. Does help out if you guys do that. Feeds the algorithm a little bit. Check out rotoscouts.com. That's where all these projections live. You can access the projections, the home run model, the top stacks, power index, pitching projections, anything else that hits that website. No per sport fees. It's all under $1 a day. Weekly, monthly, and quarterly plans. So less than $7 to get from today till next, what's today? Wednesday? Next Wednesday? Not bad. Every single main slate's going to be covered between now and then. We'll have the All-Star game and stuff. Coverage for that. Maybe make some home run derby picks. Who knows? We'll find ways to add value next week. Slate Ciccone on the mound at 83-89, 22.9% strikeout rate. Entirely respectable numbers, but also not really standout. Allowing a monster barrel rate on an extreme fly ball trajectory, 50.7% hard hits, 92.3 miles an hour of exit velo. That's kind of where I'm focused rather than the good. This is fine. It's average. Same with that. This is outlier bad. That is outlier targetable. So I'm going to take that and run with it and talk about Astros bats. 4.20 implied total. Maybe doesn't push them up the board quite as much as they ought to be. Home park benefiting Isaac Paredes in an otherwise also good year. 16.9% strikeouts, 12.2% walks, 19 homers, a 358 on base, creating runs 35% better than average. Feeding into Jake Myers, Jose Altuve, Cam Smith. Maybe not the knock 'em dead Astros that they used to be with the stretch of Tucker, Alvarez, Bregman, and so on. But there's quality here, and they're nowhere near the pricing they used to be. Altuve at 47, 32, entirely worth it. 16 home runs, 272, 332, 456. All the counting stats you could ask for, and fills second base. I'll take it. Smith for 4,000, for 3,000. Slashing 287, 350, 434. Creating runs 22% better than average. Has a 345 xWOB under the covers. Just not really capitalizing on all his premium contacts. 7.7% barrels, 45.1% hard hits. It's more line drives. There's more extra base hits than homers, but he's been good. 7 home runs is fine, for a kid finding his way. I'll take the other numbers. I'll expect the power to come around. Victor Caratini's low strikeout, low walk. So is Yainer Diaz. You can only have one of them on DraftKings. They're very closely priced. They're putting up similar numbers this year between the two. Yainer Diaz is the better player. He's got a dozen home runs to Caratini's 9, but Caratini's had 100 and change fewer plate appearances. 180 ISO for Caratini versus the 158 for Diaz. It's a good alternative to have. That's what Caratini is. Diaz is still the guy I want. I'll let other people take the Caratini shares, and I'll take Diaz most of the time here. But I do want at least a little bit of mix of Caratini. He is this good. 9 home runs in 221 plate appearances, a 180 ISO, capitalizing on all the premium contact we've seen from him over time. We've been talking about it since he entered the lineup more regularly. Cooper Hummel, I did it again. I can't say Cooper and Hummel together without saying Hummer, which isn't all that great. Cooper Hummel, 3,000, 2,500. Pretty bad 67 plate appearances so far outside of a very good 113 WRC plus and a 379 on base. Actually, that's actually a decent 67 plate appearances. The ISO and the average caught my eye as I was starting to say that, but the rest of it's actually not bad. 337 xWOB underlying as well, 8.6% barrels. Does strike out a lot, but he's drawn a lot of walks in the small sample. Trammell can put good bat on ball. Was a high-end prospect once upon a time. 1 home run on the board in 23 plate appearances. We'll see where we go, but he's at least interesting for 25, 22 across sites. And then Mauricio Dubon's a mixer. Brandon Walter is popular, apparently. 4.15 ERA, but a 2.89 xFIP is interesting. 11.2% swinging, but just a 26.9% CSW. 22.8% strikeouts against just 1.4% walks in 6 starts, 34 2/3. Went 5 last time out, gave up 5 earned runs to the Rockies. It was at Coors Field, so we'll forgive the young pitcher, but not exactly a good start. 6 innings of quality against the Cubs, 5 hits, 1 run, 5 strikeouts, no walk. The 1 run came on a solo shot. 6 innings against the Angels, kind of melted down. 7 earned runs on 9 hits, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, 2 homers allowed. He's given up a home run, at least one in each of his last 5 games. He's also completed the 6th inning 4 times in those 5 games. There's good, there's bad here, but considering the popularity, I think it's at least easy to maybe go around. And there's maybe some reason to consider some Guardians bats. In spite of that 338 implied total and their up and down nature this year, I'm at least kind of drawn to the 4.14% home run rate. It does come on a low launch and low barrel, though. So a little bit of happenstance on a small sample there. But it has come fairly regularly. Maybe it just leads to like an upside Jose Ramirez one-off kind of a spot. There's probably not that much more to work with the Guardians here. But it's at least, I see more downside, I think, than the slate does with Walter. He projects out great. He's very playable. There are strikeouts on deck for the Guardians for sure. 24.8% strikeout rate in this lineup is pretty real. So would play Walter, but I think I would undercut where the field, at least on DraftKings, apparently is. FanDuel, it's probably less problematic, and you can get the quality start out of them. But I don't love it if people are going there. Stephen Kwan from the top of the guards, if you're going that direction, he'd be a priority against this pitcher. You're just looking to find a few base hits, some correlated scoring, and then you need one of the following guys to cash in. Angel Martinez at 29-25, 6 home runs and 5 stolen bases on the year, just a 75 WRC plus. But maybe, considering the low strikeout, upper medium kind of walk territory, maybe a little bit more interesting of a hitter than that. Fills second base, if nothing else, for a cheap price in a good spot in the lineup. Jose Ramirez at 53-35 is very, very affordable considering who he is. 16 home runs, 24 steals, right on pace for expectations, a 137 WRC plus. Nothing wrong with Jose Ramirez at those prices. Carlos Santana at 36-29 has 10 home runs, up and down performance through the season, just a 305 xWOBA and a 96 WRC plus. We're probably actually in that territory, right? There's probably fair numbers for him, but he's capable of delivering an upside day, still low strikeout, high walk. So he's on base. He's going to give you the days of correlated scoring. He's going to hit probably 20 home runs on the season. Maybe he finishes at 18, but there's a handful more home runs coming in the second half. Not uninteresting if you're going to Guardians already, not a reason to go to the Guardians. David Fry is interesting if you're going to the guards. 26-24 with catcher eligibility on both sites. 3 home runs in 65 plate appearances. We've seen him square the ball up. 9.1% barrels, 45.5% hard hits. Some success in small samples previously. Against the lefty, there's some upside here. He's very, very cheap. Interesting number in, 4.49 in the home run model. Not as interesting as I remembered from earlier in the day when I picked him. Not for the home run pick of the day, but for the home run pick from the Guardians. Jonathan Rodriguez, pretty limited as far as the barrel rate, but an interesting hard hit rate in his 45 plate appearances and fewer batted ball events. 143, 200, 238 to show for it, a 21 WRC plus, mix and match player at the absolute best. Will Wilson is very cheap, but hasn't given you anything in 67 chances this year. Austin Hedges has never really given you much of a bat. And Brian Rocchio, this is a really weak bottom end for the guards. Basically, everything after David Fry is bad. And Fry hasn't exactly been good. Definitely a day where you want to be playing up in this kind of territory if you're going Guardians at all. And very well might be what I said, where it's just a better spot for a one-off Jose Ramirez share or two and not that much else. Astros bats. Brandon Walter, but I question that public ownership. Slade Ciccone, he's on the board. He's definitely playable, but like I said, I'm going to go away from the very aggressively average numbers and focus on the very bad part of it and take some Astros bats above that. But he's playable. 83 is fine. 89 is pretty rough on FanDuel, though. I don't think I go there at all on FanDuel. And the guards bats, again, it's kind of low end. Rangers, Angels, 4.70 and a 4.90 implied total in this one. It's Kumar Rocker. It's Kyle Hendricks. Hendo is targetable and has been for years, unless apparently you're the New York Yankees, who he just destroys. 4.68 ERA, a 4.76 xFIP, just 16% strikeouts. Not a bad strikeout to, not a bad walk rate, but a very limited strikeout rate, so it becomes a bad strikeout to walk rate. 3.84% home runs on a 16.8 degree average launch with plenty of power available. The Rangers have been very, very up and down this season, but they've got a lot of high-quality bats who've just underperformed, and they underperform in weird ways because it's not about their contact. Everybody's hitting the ball very, very squarely among the guys that you would expect to. Their results have just been off. No question about it, but a high-end total coming off a big day, a lot of, momentum's not a thing we can quantify. It doesn't actually exist, but a lot of momentum. Get things going. Some players who have kind of picked up performance a little bit in barely perceptible ways. So I think we can go Rangers bats here. Angels bats definitely in play against Rocker going the other direction. He comes in at a 5.80 ERA. A much more interesting, though, 3.91 xFIP, almost a full 2 runs lower. 11.2% swinging strikes is interesting against the team with a 25.2% strikeout rate. He's only finishing off 20.3% of hitters, but that could go up in a game like this, in a matchup like this. We do have the Angels lineup. I would at 75, at 82, a few mixer shares of Kumar Rocker. A sprinkling, if you're inclined to take on some risk to get a little bit different. I think he becomes a little bit more interesting in that regard. Could be a day where he finds the strikeout upside and gets to, 24, 25% strikeout rate, a 1-4 kind of performance. That said, the Angels bats have a ton of power upside. We'll start on the Rangers side, though. 41, 3,000 for Josh Smith. He's a capable correlated scoring bat. 358 on base, a 121 WRC plus. He's fine across multiple positions, but I prefer him in the outfield or at second base. He plays everywhere on FanDuel. First and third is not necessarily ideal for Josh Smith on DraftKings. He's playable there, but there's more upside in other corner infielders. Corey Seager at 44.34. He's an asset at that price on DraftKings. 13 home runs on the board at 215 ISO, 131 WRC plus. We've been off the mark in his 262 plate appearances, but not by all that much. Very playable. Marcus Semien, 3,000, up to 230, 310, 350 after spending most of his season below the Mendoza line, below a 300 on base, up to a 330 xWOBA, 9 home runs, 7 steals. He's pulling it together gradually, but it's coming together. 88 WRC plus and climbing. Adolis Garcia, 12.9% barrels and 49.6% hard hits. I will not stop talking about this. 10 home runs, 154 WRC plus. Just doesn't make sense against the way he hits the ball. It didn't make sense when he was doing similar things last year. It's just fallen apart over the last 2 seasons, despite still making good and similar contact. He had more barrels 2 years ago, but similar. It's just a weird year and a half, weird 18 months out of Adolis. He's gotten very, very cheap for the upside, though. That's the positive spin. Evan Carter at 42.33. Very playable line drive quality bat. 267, 356, 414. Joker's coming to say hi. 119 WRC plus over 132 plate appearances. Just kind of doing what he does out there. Low strikeout, high walk, high quality bat for a fair price. Wyatt Langford is a higher quality bat for an even lower price at 39 on DraftKings. Between the two, I'll take Langford shares. 33, same price on FanDuel. You can get to both pretty easily. 14 home runs, 11 steals out of Langford. 104 WRC plus, a very nice 339 xWOB under the covers. Just a 194 ISO, but going to start capitalizing more on the premium contact that he makes. Jonah Heim's a playable catcher bat for a fair price. Jake Berger at 3,000 is very interesting. 13.2% barrels and 48.9% hard hits. Only 11 home runs, just a 178 ISO. Outlier low performance over the first half. Went down to the minors, saw a delay in his total. He's made fewer plate appearances than the other guys. There's a lot to like still about Jake Berger. We're not off the mark as far as the quality of contact goes. So we could have a big second half. Even if he has a mediocre second half, he's going to give you some very, very high-end DFS days. Kyle Higashioka still not hitting the ball like he did in the quality seasons. Zach Neto at 51, 3,000 on the top of the Angels lineup. Very solid DFS contributor in all categories. 14.3% barrels. Very uniquely, individually good at the top of the lineup. 205 ISO, 115 WRC plus. Incredibly playable against Kumar Rocker and probably going to go a little bit underowned given the depth of the overall slate. Shaniel's great at getting on base ahead of Mike Trout, Taylor Ward, Joe Adell, and all their power. Trout at 46, 31, 14 home runs, 207 ISO. He is better than the performance so far, and he's better than these prices. Take advantage while he's still cheap. Ward at 41-31. I feel like we've been stuck at 20 home runs for a minute or right around there, but still a tremendous first half for power. 246 ISO, a 111 WRC plus overall. He's been interesting. Puts great wood on the ball. 13.5% barrels for just 4,100. Take the upside against a young pitcher just starting to find his way. Joe Adell at 4,000. 15.3% barrels out of him. 19 home runs at 247 ISO. Monster season so far. Just needs to keep doing what he's doing. Joan Moncada back in the lineup at 3,025. Fills out the lineup a little bit with a guy who can put good wood on the ball. Was doing so in his first 117 plate appearances. Hit 6 home runs, had a 257 ISO over that stretch, 124 WRC plus. He was getting interesting. We'll see where it goes. He's never been a guy who really fulfilled his destiny at the major league level in any way, but not a dead bat down lineup. Jorge Soler has been mostly dead all season. 9 home runs, just a 152 ISO and 80 WRC plus. Remains a interesting bat to me if I'm going Angels. He's gotten really cheap. I continue to believe in a bounce back for some of the upside, or at least in the any given slate, aggressively good power potential that he has. Travis d'Arnaud's always put good bat on ball when he's been in lineups. 5 home runs in 142 chances, a 174 ISO, 15.1% barrels. That's all you need out of Travis d'Arnaud. And then Luis Rengifo, having a disappointing year. Playable because he's cheap at a key position at second base, but not great. Correlated score, you need him to get on base and wrap around to the top, and he's getting on base at a 272 clip with a 309 xWOB underneath. Not great out of Luis Rengifo this year. Rangers bats, Angels bats. Between the two pitchers, give me Kumar Rocker, but you probably really don't need to go to either one. Money asks, Joker showed up for the Rangers. He's stacking the Rangers today, but the question is, do they like 4 or 5 man Ranger stack? What do you think? 5 man? I was just going to say, what do you think 4? And he was aggressively shaking his head. So I'm going to say he likes the 5 man. Michael Knack calling for the Corey Seager home run of the day. OMG Lils, yeah, the algo's hungry out there, man. We got to feed the algo with some of those thumbs up, some subscriptions on the YouTube channel here. Costs you nothing to subscribe on YouTube. Does actually help. We are 20-something subscribers shy of 1,000. I've been harping on this for way too long. Other channels with way lower end content rocket past us in views. Probably mostly my fault for not promoting things properly, but what are you going to do? I need you guys to help out with that and hit that subscribe button for me, and then just mute all notifications, whatever you got to do to completely ignore it for the rest of your life. Just show up for the shows when you know they're happening. The D-backs, despite their quality, coming in at just a 3.67 implied total because Dylan Cease is on the mound. Cease pitching to a 4.62 ERA doesn't really explain that away, but his 3.38 xFIP certainly does. 28.9% strikeout rate, a 16.2% swinging strike rate, one of the best sources of whiffs on the entire slate. We're going to live and die by what happens with the runs, what happens with a little bit of the sequencing, whether he keep walks in check, 8.6%, walks not ideal, 1.33 whip. That's where your trouble comes from, but he is one of the top overall pitchers in just the raw talent sense. And 9,300, 9,000, you're gambling a little bit playing against the Diamondbacks here, but the Vegas total's a believer. The strikeout upside is very, very real. So I think we lean a little bit Cease. Brendan Fott on the other side, I think we can lean a little bit Padres. 4.42 implied total for them. Fott comes in with a weird season so far. 5.42 ERA, but a 3.95 xFIP. Not uninteresting difference between the two. 19.9% strikeout rate is not special. Neither is the 9.7% swinging, the 25.1% CSW. But when the 19.9 comes against just a 5.7% walk rate from a young pitcher, that's not bad as a strikeout to walk. It's not good, but it's not terrible. What's terrible has been the 13.4% barrel, the 50% hard hit, the 92.2 miles an hour of exit velo, all ridiculously far beyond our threshold. He left the line behind miles ago. 3.98% home runs is very high. It's nearly at our big flashing warning sign of trouble for 4%, and he's lucky to be that low. So there's a lot of downside. I will say there's upside too, though. 7,400, 7,900 could find the form. He has found it in a few spots this season. As mentioned before, 8 strikeouts last time out against the Giants. Did give up 4 earned runs on 6 hits, over 6 in that one, but 8 strikeouts, 2 walks. 7 strikeouts, a walk, just 2 earned runs to Miami the start before that. 7 strikeouts, a walk, a home run, 4 earned on 6 hits to Colorado, but at Coors Field over 5. 3 strikeouts, but it was against the Blue Jays, 2 earned runs over 5, 4 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, but 9 hits allowed over 5 to the Mariners. And then several disaster games, including the 8 earned runs in which he did not get it out against the Nationals. Was pitching better early in the season. Several 6 strikeout games with limited runs allowed. Couple bumpy ones along the way. There was a 6-run game over 4 2/3 against the Phillies, but was working 6 innings pretty consistently, limiting runs fairly consistently. He's a much better pitcher than he's been this season, and you can see that a little bit in the xFIP. But I don't think we need to go there against the low strikeout Padres team. 74, 79. He's on the board, but he's low end. He's probably going to be low owned, so you can maybe sneak through that way. But you're really, really trying to thread an incredibly thin needle here. Fernando Tatis, top of the pods, 55-38, has 15 home runs, 19 steals. He strikes out just 17.6% of the time, which is nothing compared to the 2.4% at which Luis Arraez strikes out. Arraez slashing 293, 327, 409. Table setter, just a weird lineup configuration, and I'll continue to say that until they switch it. Manny Machado at 52-35, monster year out of Manny with 15 home runs at 293, 51, 480 slash line. Just looking really interesting. 135 WRC plus to lead this team. You do have a 7-man stretch there with an average WRC plus of 116. This is a quality lineup. Gavin Sheets, 37, 3,000, 13 home runs in a very good season so far. 352 xWOBA tells us that, at worst, the performances are going to continue to kind of wax and wane, and he'll finish in the 25 home run range with a slash line that looks pretty similar to this, with upside for more. Jackson Merrill at 45-31 is very affordably priced considering what we know about the upside for him. Against the scuffling pitcher, it could be a monster Jackson Merrill day at those prices. Xander Bogaerts, the season, as I've talked about throughout, has been kind of up and down. We can see some quality, low strikeout, high walk, especially things that collide well with the downside of Brandon Pfaadt on the wrong day. You could get there with Bogey. He's at 257, 334, 362, gotten back up to league average for WRC plus, 13 steals. Power's kind of gone out and continues to be out, but not an uninteresting spot filler at the cheap prices. More interesting at second base on FanDuel. Cronenworth's playable, 38-29, creating runs 21% better than average, gets on base like crazy. Mix and match quality as far as the overall slash line, the power output, but a not uninteresting hitter. Trenton Brooks, Martin Maldonado, entirely skippable down lineup outside of some cheap pricing. If you're attacking Dylan Cease with Diamondbacks, I just grabbed the lineup. I should actually put it in. We're obviously starting things off with Mr. Corbin Carroll up at the top. Who the hell is Tristan English, and why is he in this lineup? Deadman price across sites. Since he's on the slate, I guess we got to grab him. He is, I'm going to say right-handed. Right-handed. Whoops. All right, do this to add a few lines in here just so I don't have to do it later when there's a guy there. It's a weird way to spell Tristan, man. All right, there we go. 317 in the home run model. I will confess I know very little about this hitter, including up until just a minute ago while you guys were watching, that he existed at all. There's a reason for that. He's 28. This is a quad A kind of a guy. 272 plate appearances in mostly AAA this year. 11 home runs, a 336, 387, 563 slash, a 125 WRC plus. Tremendous AAA numbers, but again, playing as a 28-year-old against younger competition. Similar numbers in his 26 and 27-year-old seasons in AAA. This is the definition of a quad A type player. Maybe it's just never got a shot. Maybe he finds a little something. At the dead min, you can match your way because he's so cheap to some of that minor league quality, but know that you're probably just getting an underwhelming player who is not a major leaguer. Corbin Carroll's most definitely a major leaguer. 58, 4,000 across sites, 20 homers, 10 steals in 341 chances, a 144 WRC plus. Fire away if you're attacking Dylan Cease. He's an ideal bat to do it with. He's got power. He's got the ability to draw a walk. He can cash in a stolen base, score you a run, or create runs. Ketel Marte at 61 39 at second base, can also do all of those things. 19 home runs for him, a 168 WRC plus. Fantastic option at a weak position. Geraldo Perdomo, 45 at shortstop, 32 at shortstop. Not my favorite shortstop option on the board. Doesn't hit for a ton of power. Does have 9 home runs in 403 plate appearances, 13 stolen bases. It's a good year so far for Perdomo. Getting a full season in and getting a lot of opportunity up in the top of the lineup is helping him look really good, but not a true top of the lineup kind of a hitter outside of maybe the leadoff spot. 3 spot is okay because he can be more a table resetter. If we cash in with Carroll and Marte up top, he gets on base ahead of Eugenio Suarez, ahead of when Josh Naylor's in the lineup, Lourdes Gurriel right now. So it's a playable option. I kind of like the idea of like a sneaky cheap 3-man right there with Perdomo, Suarez, and Gurriel if you're going this route. Suarez is just obvious, 28 home runs. He's a monster power hitter, always has been. Gurriel's kind of interesting. 4,000, cheap. 2,900, cheap. He's slashing 255, 301, 429, right at league average for run creation. Okay-ish 174 ISO. It's not the 200 plus that we want for an actual power bat, but line drive capable hitter with a little bit of upside for more. 12 home runs so far this year. We've seen him hit for a higher average. We've seen him get on base more consistently. So in many ways, kind of underperforming his talent while also, though, shaving 4 points off strikeout rate, keeping walks around 5%. So in some ways, this is a more interesting bat than it might look like. And the price is going down, not up. Well, I mean, there's no good reason for it to go up, really. But the price has gone down. So he's really interesting if I'm going to Diamondbacks. Not a reason to go to the Diamondbacks, but if you are already, he's interesting. Jake McCarthy, 27-25, pretty bad 88 plate appearances so far. He's got a little bit more to give than that, but he's nothing more than a replacement level outfielder. James McCann at 37-25. I got to apologize for saying he was completely dead at the plate because it's been 23 interesting plate appearances, 57.1% hard hits in what's probably 5 batted ball events, 1 home run on the board at 278 ISO, a 204 WRC plus. Obviously, those numbers are going to cool as he gets more plate appearances, but he's at least been respectable in the teeny tiny sample after being mostly dead, over 233 last year, over 226 the year before. A little bit of power out of him every now and again. Alec Thomas, mix and match quality outfielder, probably a little bit better than Jake McCarthy right now. In the long term, I don't know which one I prefer. Comes down to lineup, spot, price, etc. You don't want both. You want one or the other if you're taking one at all. Dylan Cease, but challenging. Padres bats, Diamondbacks bats, darts of Brandon Pfaadt if you're feeling adventurous. Rounding things out with a game in which we don't need to focus on the pitchers. Bryce Elder, I will say, is at least moderately competent. 14 starts, a 5.92 ERA, but a sub 4 xFIP, just barely. 19% strikeouts, not great. 8.3% walks, even more problematic. Over the threshold in all of those categories is what we want to focus on. In this ballpark, that's going to cost you. So definitely a lot of upside showing for A's bats. And then Mitch Spence is on the mound going the other way. 12.4% barrels over the line, 43.3 on the hard hits, 90.8 miles an hour of exit velo allowed so far. That's also over the line. There is thunder again in this late game in Sacramento. Monster spot, especially now that we got to replace those chalky Mets. I think we just get more and more shares of this one and mix it with the other high-end spots on the game. I am willing to embrace chalk in this game for the ridiculous upside it comes with. Ronald Acuna, top of the Braves. I assume we don't have these yet. Oh, we do have the A's. Acuna did scratch yesterday. We missed that late in the going. I caught it just in time for my lineups ones, honestly. Fortunately, I only threw 4 lineups in yesterday. All right. Damn it. I knew there was something I needed to do there. I just couldn't spot it. I should start changing his name to like Max Muncy Esquire. Start adding a bunch of weird shit to it. Put an Enye in there. So Lawrence Butler coming off a big day. 13 home runs, 14 steals, now a 113 WRC plus over 384 plate appearances. Very solid season out of him, coming off of a very solid second half last year, 45-32 in this ballpark, hitting left-handed against Bryce Elder. Seems like a spot we can go back to Lawrence Butler. It is a little bit of a challenge just getting all of their high-quality bats in, because you want Butler, you want Rooker, you want Soderstrom, you want Langoliers, you want Kurtz. There's a lot to work with. And then down lineup, you've got a very cheap Zach Geloff, 35-25. I highlighted him yesterday and didn't really come through. 16 pretty empty plate appearances so far in his return to action. Last year, 17 home runs and 25 steals. I get that he was at an 82 WRC plus, just a 151 ISO, a bad slash line over 547 chances, but he did all of those things quite a bit better the year before in 300 plate appearances while going 14-14 for the season. So in the 847 plate appearances that sample represents, that's quite a few home runs and stolen bases along the way, and those count for a lot for DFS. I'm really interested in cheap Zach Geloff down lineup, but now I got too many hitters to work with, so that leads to a lot of A's stacks, which isn't necessarily a problem. Brent Rooker with his monster barrel and premium contact and all the positive attributes in just basically every category across the line here. 19 home runs, 271, 347, 492, a 131 WRC plus. Talk about guys I would love it if the Yankees could somehow acquire. I feel like we teach him to play third base. Why not? Can't be worse than Brian Hayes. I mean, he would be quite a bit worse defensively than Brian Hayes, but I would take that trade for adding that bat to that lineup. Brian Hayes, Gold Glove caliber defense. Nick Kurtz at 47-33 cashed in the home run pick of the day yesterday. Comes right back at a 10.56 to lead this team. Rooker at 9.99. Langoliers monster number. Soderstrom, even Max A. Muncy here, 7.17. He's got a little pop in that bat with 8 home runs and 183 chances. Just monster power upside again for the A's. Any combination of those top 5 guys, very much in play. If you're just taking the straight line top 5, you're going to be at like a $4,600, $4,560, so $4,600 average for those guys. That's where Muncy becomes a mixer. That's where Geloff becomes a mixer. Maybe even some Denzel Clark. I mentioned him yesterday. Not an uninteresting player, just given the raw tools that he's got. He's got speed. We've seen it in the outfield. We've seen it with 5 stolen bases and 130 chances, despite just a 258 on base. He's got a little pop, 3 home runs out of him in 130 chances and a 125 ISO, but an 8.7% barrel. He's made interesting contact. Hit one very long home run, one of the top distance home runs on the season. So I believe in the talent coming through. Still a young kid just landing and has not been playing baseball for very long, just full stop. So there's a ton of lurking upside. Any given slate as a way to get cheap with his A's lineup for a player who's never popular. That's an interesting bat down, just kind of hiding down there. So like if you went those 2 and then fill all 3 outfield spots and just straight line it right there. I'm really interested in taking the catcher there. That was the debate, whether I want to go Butler or go like that to Langoliers for a little bit cheaper and fill out the catcher spot so that I get 2 outfielders, first base, second and catcher taken care of with one of the most desirable stacks of the day. And I'm at a price tag of $4,020 a piece. And it still includes Rooker, Kurtz, Langoliers, Geloff, and then take a flyer on Denzel Clark. That's the way to get to cheap A's. There are other combinations of that and similar ideas to work with there. And again, these guys all together, or 3 of those guys together, is not unaffordable. But keep these semi-talented bats in mind down lineup. The one guy down there that's problematic more so, I think, than the others is Gio Urshela. You don't want to get over the moon with Gio. That said, low strikeout, medium walk, so a lot of frequency of bat on ball. It's just very low quality bat on ball all the time. Did hit 9 home runs in 453 chances last year. Did slash 299, 329, 374, but just had a 92 WRC plus over 228 chances the year before. And then this weird outlier season with 13 home runs in 551, 285, 338, 429, and a 119 WRC plus. I believe that was with the Yankees. That's why every Yankees fan will tell you that he's a superstar that we never should have gotten rid of. They're wrong. They're way, way, way wrong. Keep that between us. A's bats, tremendous. Braves bats. just going down that lineup, assuming we get Acuna, he's obvious and a superstar and just performing like it. Hopefully he's there. It's a big downgrade to this lineup if he's not. You saw it kind of underwhelmed yesterday, but I'm going right back to the well with Braves. Hopefully they get under-owned for that. Matty Olson at 17 home runs and a 220 ISO and poised for a just ridiculous power hitting second half. Austin Riley, 42-32 is just too cheap for that hitter in this ballpark. What he's been over time, what he's doing right now, even 272, 323, 431 is not bad at all by modern standards. 13 home runs. He's been fine. He's just not been Austin Riley at his peak, but he's been barreling and hitting the ball hard, just like that version of Austin Riley. So again, a tremendous second half is coming. Jerkson Profar, 34, 3,000. Take or leave Jerkson Profar shares. Drake Baldwin would be interesting if this is the lineup that we get. Big lefty thunder in that bat. 11.1% barrels, 50% hard hits, 10 homers and 196 chances. 200 ISO on the nose, kind of filling the Travis d'Arnaud vacancy in this lineup as the backup catcher or the bottom half of the platoon catcher. Not that d'Arnaud was a platoon. You don't have to worry about it. Doesn't matter. They're both right-handed, him and Murphy. Ozzie Albies, 37, 27, 6 home runs, 7 steals in an otherwise bad season. Mikey Harris also struggling, and Nick Allen is here for defense as always. A's bats, Braves bats, but Braves bats, A's bats works just as well. They're the exact same total with essentially the exact same upside against similarly bad pitchers. This is your pitching board one last time. I'm going to forgo the full recap of the pitching slate in favor of taking the 5 minutes and using that to update the website. But suffice to say, a lot to work with up at the top. Love Mackenzie Gore, especially if he goes under-owned by comparison to everyone else on the slate in that price range. Mix and match your way through a lot of these other guys. Love Chris Bubich. He was also going to be potentially under-owned as compared to where I think he ought to be, which is higher owned than these guys right here in this stretch. Let me just... God damn it. Right after saying I wasn't going to do it. Some of these lefties pulling more ownership than that lefty against that team, I guess is just because of the price tag. But that makes Chris Bubich way more interesting if he's going to be under-owned. I don't know that it's accurate. But maybe. Maybe we get there. Some interesting left-handed pitching on today's slate. Southpaw kind of a day. Is Giolito safe today? No, never. But extremely, extremely playable, potentially the top pitcher of the day. On FanDuel, he projects out second to Mackenzie Gore. A little bit more separation on the DraftKings slate, but he's cheaper over on DK. The pitcher who's primed to give up a bad day here and there, that ballpark will lend itself to bad days, but he's got more than enough strikeout stuff to exploit that Rockies lineup. There's more than enough downside for him to get through them pretty cleanly. Find a bunch of Ks along the way. He's got the upside too to shave off a few bad batted ball events. So let's say he gives up the 3-run homer, but gets through 6 innings and change, gives you the win upside because the Sox are going to destroy the Rockies pitcher, and finds 8-10 strikeouts along the way. You've at worst balanced out those 3 runs and gotten your money's worth at 85. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, Doug. That is a more targetable Rockies team for sure than the Cardinals are, and you're getting a discount, right? Assuming you're talking about DK, even if it's for 100 more on FanDuel, there's almost definitely a higher ceiling in play for Giolito, where Gore's got to do it kind of on his talent to beat a middle-of-the-road Cards team. Giolito is actually going to get a little bit of help from the Rockies most of the time here. So it's just different kind of spots. I would say that's a perfectly fine decision. Nothing wrong with it. Dimitri's closing his eyes playing Palante so I can have Yankees. All right. The one thing I would call out is potential weather considerations there. Right now, looks fine, but this time yesterday, it was only just starting to look ugly. That said, you guys, let me get out of here, get the projections updated so that they're usable for this slate. TexXNeek asking at the end of the show here, Colorado stack for leverage. Not the craziest idea in the world, given the ballpark, given the home run hitting nature of some of those players. They're a very flawed team. They're going to be under-owned, or they're going to be low-owned. I don't know that it's necessarily under-owned because they're not good. I see the downside for them coming through a lot more, which is why they will be low-owned. But out of the bad teams, there's at least reasons to believe there with some of those home run hitters. And I'm thinking of the Talias, the Becks, the Goodmans and so forth of the world. I forget what that lineup looks like exactly, but they're on that list. but there's probably better options. Big slate, a lot of low-owned spots to get to. All right, let me actually punch out this time. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. Share those results when you do at rotoscouts on Twitter, in our free Discord, which is linked. Don't have to be a subscriber to join Discord, but if you subscribe over at rotoscouts.com, I would appreciate it. It's under $1 a day, gets you access to all these great projections, and you can go out and put your own lineups together, form your own opinions based on my projections, and go win your slates. A lot of talking today. Let me get out of here, guys. You absolutely rock. Back for more tomorrow on a probably shorter Thursday. I haven't looked at it yet. See you.